We should be spat on. We should. We sink deeper until we grasp the Zionist ideology. And by the way, some of them have moved from being Zionist fighters to collaborators. Nartsi, the bride is beautiful, but she is married. Yes, it means it has land with people. I want to draw for you, Professor Muhammad, and for the viewers. The honorable ones presented a dramatic scene filled with meanness. For us, meanness and depravity are a story. Palestine is full of dramatic scenes and scenes. Tragic. Sir Sykes came out of the room, looked at him, and said, he has the famous saying, he's a boy first, I won. I can prove and confirm that it is the English effort in the attempt to establish a Jewish state predates Herzl and the British. When they wanted to establish this, the national homeland for the Jews was the goal. They control the area. Naturally, they have no owner. Jewish doctrine states that this land is land for the Jews. Yes, Christians see this land. It is also their holy land. Wow, Muslims also consider the Levant to be a holy land. If this land is sacred to Christians and Jews and Muslims, yes, the Jewish question before the Europeans and before Judaism is a matter of religion, not political interests. Europeans discovered Christ. This isn't just one prophet. He's one in a series of prophets. Children of Israel, there's no problem here. That's where it started. A new image of Jews is being formed, not as they are enemies of the Lord and enemies of Christ, but rather as Jews displaced from Palestine. Odd, it is a religious duty to work towards its restoration. Jews to Palestine. Tie it up, sir. Tie it up, sir. Yes, what made the Jews want to settle in this area? The land has begun to be liberated, and all Arab countries have returned, but Palestine remained alone under occupation. The meaning is that the entire Arab world has been liberated except for Palestine, because Britain, that's the situation. The only place she wanted was here to be a state. Will Palestine, or rather a Zionist state, ever be liberated? Palestine, the liberation of Palestine is a promise from God Almighty, and so she will surely be freed, and I think so. It's very close. Peace be upon you, my brothers, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome to a new episode of the series, 100 Questions in History. This series is from. Throughout it, we always answer questions. The tragedy that our Islamic history has been exposed to. The big, wide one. Where did we get to? Who joined us? Recently, we have moved onto the 10th axis, the axis of history. Contemporary, we have now reached the episode. What does this mean? What does this mean if I recently joined and there's a large collection of episodes? You have to start with it from the first episode and walk until you have a visual representation of a horizontal projection on this great and vast history of ours. Yes, no, it is not possible, neither directly nor indirectly, to begin this episode without welcoming its regular guest. Welcome, Professor Mohammed Al-Harni. Mohammed, welcome, Abu Al-Harith. Professor Mohammed, we have reached question number 93. Ready. Question 93. We put our trust in God. Before I ask the question, I draw for you, Professor Muhammad, and for the esteemed viewers. Dramatic scene, full of meanness, depravity, and degradation in relation to, for us. Yes, for them, it is a scene of victory, control, and domination. There's no one who knows how. It means we've reached a point like this. We started to gain control there in London, Professor Mohammed, specifically on a street called Eton Downing Street on October 31, 1917. British Prime Minister David Lloyd George. He was sitting in his office like that, meeting in the War Council. Who is supervising us in this gathering? Arthur James Balfour is a well-known name. Yes, the foreign minister. And who else is with us? The guy sitting here with us is Mark Sykes. What's up, Sykes? Remembering the story. And with us is Alfred I. Milner and a number of others, meaning from the ministers in the next room, Professor Muhammad. To complete the scene, who else is waiting outside like this? He was waiting for Professor Chaim Wiseman and his companion, Aaron. Anson, head of which was called Nili or Nili at that time. I think Nili. The discussions and sessions of this council were, of course, lengthy. The war took place during the months of September and October, and acknowledgement. The dangerous text was known. Yes, this is the text that Haim was waiting for. Wiseman, who's sitting outside in the room, the neighboring text, and when Professor Muhammad approved this text, Sir Sykes came out of the room, looked at him, and said, he has the famous saying, the newborn is a boy, or he is. Boy means that the announcement has been approved, and this is what he said. It was on November 2, 117. This declaration is called the Balfour Declaration, or what? He called it a good message, sent from Balfour to Ray, Foreign Secretary. Whose British passport is it, Lord? Walter Rothschild. He later announced in the press, of course, that young men would be fine if they lived long. Your age means you only hear about promises. Balfour promised, Balfour promised, Balfour, what is it? A promise immediately means that this promise is valid if he never. I've seen it before, so I'll ignore it. With your permission, Professor Muhammad, read it quickly. This is the text and it is dated to November 1917. Sender Arthur James Bulford to Maine Rothschild. Rothschild will tell us about him in a little while, God willing. The text says, young people, what does he say? Delicious, listen, look, government. His Majesty, with a compassionate eye, is working towards the establishment of a nation. My people will rise up for the Jewish people in Palestine and will strive to the utmost her efforts to facilitate the achievement of this goal, provided that it is clearly understood that no action will be taken that would. He diminishes and pay close attention and focus. He diminishes rights, the civil and religious rights enjoyed by the sects. Non-Jewish people, look, we are non-Jewish groups, we're living here, and you feel like we're just visiting. Non-Jewish residents of Palestine and rights or political status enjoyed. Jews in any other country. This is the text of the letter was sealed and signed by Arthur James Balfour, British Foreign Secretary. Yes, of course, when this meeting ended, Mr. Mohammed, when Sykes left Gore, he summoned Heisman and his friend, and they entered the office of Prime Minister Louis George. They greeted him, and he blessed them, knowing the atmosphere, the gentle warmth. Professor Muhammad, we are in the Axis. Contemporary history, this era, or this century, began to liberate. All Arab countries returned, but Palestine remained alone under occupation. The question is, what is the story? Palestine. This is question number 93-9. In the name of God, and praise be to God, and prayers and peace be upon the messenger of God, and upon his family and companions, and those who follow him. The story of Palestine is full of dramatic scenes, and the tragic scenes. The truth is, this is a large, busy, and overflowing file. The complex, full of details, meaning, although I've talked about it a lot, every time, I feel confident enough to take on this challenge too. Okay, let me. First, I apologize in advance to you and the viewers of this. The series is that no matter how many hours we spend and no matter we have mentioned some information, but what more could we possibly miss? Much of what we will say. Yes, therefore, the truth is I liked it from the beginning. If I refer to this book, it is a summary of the story. Palestine. A book is available online internet. Free means I'll send you the link, God willing. We can put it in the image description, with God's help. And for those who like to watch, this material has also been converted to television episodes produced by the Our History Palestine platform. Yes, it has 29 episodes. This is for those who want more details. Apology in advance, so that when you miss me, so many problems and scenes, what does enough even mean? I feel sorry for those who blame me. It's beautiful if Professor Muhammad is here. This means we are obviously dealing with a very large file, a story. The episode shows that the story is a priority and will be released. Regarding the table and the ladder of priorities, if the teacher, what we will miss, we will find in a series consisting of 30 episodes. Its name is The Story of Palestine on the platform of our history, Palestine, or your personal platform. Okay, that means I'm the one who's the character in it. My YouTube is having problems. They've blocked my content. If it's not with me, it will be with you all, but the book might contain something, God willing. Okay. So yes, also because of the available materials, there's a lot to say about Palestine, so I'll try to say it, which is not usually discussed in relation to the subject of Palestine. Yes, okay, let's begin, my master, with a creed. Judaism, let's start with what? Let the Jews want to live in this land. Yes, well, the Jewish idea actually says that the land of Palestine is their land. It is the place where their prophets were sent, meaning it was there. Abraham was there, and Isaac was there, and Jacob was there. Joseph was born there, and later when Moses was sent to Egypt brought the Israelites out of Egypt to this land. The land is complete, which is the land of the Levant and the land of Sinai. By the way, for them, the issue, one or a close one, and in it were their prophets, and in it they reached their golden age, David and Solomon. From there they were expelled, along with the rest of the captives, the Babylonians, and the persecutions that befell them. Jewish belief states that this land is land for the Jews. That's the Jewish belief. Or, therefore, despite the long years and the succession of years on the loss of this land, they understand their religions and beliefs, meaning they know. So when we greet each other, we say that, God willing, the next Eid will be in Al-Aqsa Mosque. He was saying the next feast in Jerusalem. Of course, we didn't miss the occupation of Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa was occupied in 1967. That means we can say, for example, the western part of Palestine was occupied in 1917, meaning we were set back 100 years. What was the Jew saying after 3,000 years? The next holiday in Jerusalem, or okay, so this was a belief they had. This is one aspect, meaning this is a scene and a pause on good sigh. Christians see this land. It's their holy land. Why aren't we? The Christians still believe that no prophet was sent there. No, they see it as the birth of God in relation to her. Their God is not a prophet, but Jesus Christ. What does the Christian faith say? She says that when Adam made the first mistake that led to his downfall, paradise, and he was forbidden from paradise, his sons inherited this sin from him. Okay, so what do all human beings have? Stigmatized through sin. So here a conflict occurred within the Lord. May God forgive me. Of course, I'm telling a story now. God forbids such talk, but there was an internal conflict. God is caught between his mercy and his justice. His mercy tells him to forgive people. She corrected him by saying that it's not right to forgive people. So how could this conflict be resolved? It was necessary to. It means someone has to. He sacrifices himself for humanity. Okay, fine, he'd sacrifice himself for humanity. Where would we find someone like him? So, we're going to bring someone from another planet, for example, to humanity reveals itself. Not all humans possess it. Mistakes. Here, the will of the Lord was decided that the Lord himself. He is incarnate as a human being. Arhar. He goes down to earth and calls to his worship, and to him means the Lord becomes incarnate as a human being and descends among the people. So who? Those who respond to this Lord or people will be divided into two groups. One group will respond and another group will not. He will not respond. The one who will respond is the one who will erase the sin. Original. Okay, so how do they erase original sin? Lord, he himself will be subjected to not crucifixion. These are the sufferings through which God redeemed mankind because of their first sin. Whoever believes in Christ, Redeemer, the original sin remains erased from him, which is not. What does it mean if someone believes in Christ the Redeemer and Savior? He deserved the punishment, and the sin remained with him. In modern Palestine, Bethlehem and Nazareth are included. The verse and this area are fine, and this is where the conflict ignites. The ancient and eternal conflict between Jews and Christians. All Christians believe that this is the God who he descended to redeem humanity. He who believes in him is the one who deserves this holy land. So what was the Jews' stance towards Christ? The Jews, as was their custom, whenever a messenger came to them, they were arrogant and rejected what their souls did not desire, and a group of them lied, and a team killed him. They informed the Roman authorities about this Christ. This led to his crucifixion. So how do the Jews view Mary, who is the mother? Christ remained the Virgin Mary. They see her as an adulteress and otherwise how could someone come from not her father? So here lies the eternal conflict between whom among Christianity and between Judaism. This age-old conflict will cause in it too. 400 years have passed, but the Christians believed that the worst people are the Jews because they caused the pain. Christ, because they hurled insults at Christ's mother. Light for them. Ud. Yes, Ud. Therefore, this land is their land. The sacredness of the bad relationship between Christians and the Jews translated themselves into history through massacres and persecutions, problems and calamities. And why the Jews, for example, meaning the state, the Romans converted to Christianity when the Persians, they will seize the land of Syria. The Jews will remain horse assistants. They help them occupy the country. They help them in the churches, tracked down their treasures. Good first. Why doesn't the Roman state come and go and conquer? Who will pay the price? The Jews who? They exist. Therefore the relationship between them is complex, and it is ablaze, and both of them see this land as land. Holy, that's it. Now let's talk about the Muslims. The Muslims too. They consider the land of Syria to be a holy land for Muslims. They believe they are the true heirs, and that everyone, prophets, and the prophets who descended in the Son. That means we are more deserving of Moses than they are, and we are more deserving of Jesus among them, and this land above that is what witnessed, as we say, the final scene of the prophets on earth, when the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was taken on the night journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, and from there he ascended to the sky, and from it he descended from the sky, he descended to it from, he prayed in the heavens with the prophets and returned to Mecca, and there do not travel except to the mosques, for they contain it. It was the first Qibla for Muslims, and it contains holy land. Glory be to him who took his servant by night from the sacred mosque to the Al-Aqsa mosque. We have blessed its surroundings. Let us show him some of our signs, for it is also land for us. Yes, it is sacred if this land is sacred to you. Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Yes, what you said a little while ago was good, but please answer me a very important question. Yes, this also spreads on social media. We are not. We'll leave it at that, because he's half-witted. This is her. She's still with us. I'll bring her. If we Muslims don't ask us, Uncle, why are you so attached to Palestine? Why? You're defending her, so what's the problem? Yeah, it's not about Qatar being a state we're defending. About her. No, it is sacred. Religiously sacred land. But, oh, so what does this religiously holy land do? If you and I were arguing, for example, over a position, Are they fighting over money or fighting over a building, rural, heredity, or something similar? Someone knows how to get involved with us like that. Oh, you good man. You take half and the other one takes half. You take a third and you take the third that's on the street and you take the 2/3 behind the street. It means someone can interfere, but sacred matters, religions don't allow this kind of compromise. No one does. He might come and say to you, for example, what do you think about believing in Muhammad? Half a day and you believe in Jesus, half a day or the next day. What do you think about believing in half of the Quran or a third of the Quran? But forget about those two sirs, they'll do something to us. There are no political problems, there is no one in religion, and the holy sites accept compromises. So now the problem that is happening, there are no middle grounds. Someone can step in and convince this ban. You take what's above the mosque, and you take what's under the mosque, or we divided the mosque in two, one half remains. There's no structure like that. Therefore, the reality of the conflict surrounding this, the place is a zero-sum game. Yeah, one side must eliminate the other, or it means a conflict in which you will be of no use. The borders are good. Now we have said that the Jews, since they were displaced by the Roman persecutions, and with the Persian and Babylonian persecutions and speech, much of what you read in history books, the important thing is that the Jews, since their state was removed, Suleiman after his death, it split into two parts, north and south, and they no longer exist. Those who have the upper hand in this land, and did not, they will return to rule it. Why don't they rule it anymore? Because through this means, you could say 3,000 years, and there are a few more details. Throughout this time, empires have risen and fallen. The powerful were either Christian or imperial, Roman and Eastern Roman. As for Islam, no one dared to establish a state for the Jews, where, in this land, there are no Christians who, they are hostile to Jews and do not accept Muslims. They see this as their holy land, they accept it, or good, so they preferred their rabbis in their synagogues. Their poems, whatever they may be, express their wish for a near return to Palestine. Yes, when did they manage to bring this back? We have two major variables. Two very large historical variables. The first variable occurred in Europe, and the second variable occurred in our Islamic world. Let's look at the changes that have occurred. The change that happened in Europe, Christianity is divided into two sects, major Catholic and Orthodox Catholic countries. The people whose church is in Rome are the Pope. Their leader is the Pope in the Vatican. Their language was Latin. The Orthodox were a people whose church was Constantinople, who was the great Sophia now. Their language is Greek and their religion is Orthodox. Yes, at the end of the 15th century, the beginning of in the 16th century, a new schism emerged in Christianity. The Jews have nothing to do with it, or at least some of them. People are telling them they have a relationship with him, but the details between historians are not important now. Importantly, a third school of thought emerged called Protestantism. From the Catholic side, a schism, a breakaway from the Catholics. This doctrine emerged, and that's the gist of it. The topic is that the story is about Martin Luther, German. Yes, this man saw that a group of rabbis and these monks have become merchants of religion. What does merchants mean? Religion, or which is Christianity, in which there is something called recognition, isn't the same as it is for us Muslims. When someone commits a sin, it's best if they don't. It's better if he keeps it a secret and no one knows about it. He repents to himself. He prays 2 rakahs to God. He gives charity. He calls upon God in private, between himself and his Lord. Yes, Christianity has something called confession, which means going Go to your priest and confess to him what he already did it, and one of its effects is that he saved that. This story is now able to generate income and sell paradise deeds. What do you mean? You did this, so show us. £3,000? Look into it for us. No, your issue is too big. No, your issue is bigger than 50. Anyway, that's all. He forgives you and gives you a piece of paradise, according to the verse. Especially since Catholic Christianity was the Bible, meaning the book, is the only thing that can be read. This holy book isn't published among the people. No, this sacred knowledge is considered secret. It should not be revealed. He is not well read, and only scholars, especially, can read him. After the Latin language split into languages and dialects, the origins of European languages are different now. This means a holy book other than the Bible. It is the gospel, but nobody. That's not like he doesn't print or publish. No. Available to all. If you have a question about your religion, come and ask the sheikh. Yeah, however, the Pope has the authority to analyze, and the prohibition is due to its rejection. Yeah, so our first point is that he said, O people of the book, this holy book is for everyone to read, and everyone. He understands what he wants, and there is no mediation between them. The servant is between his Lord, and everyone who understands something will understand. This means everyone should read the Bible with. The priest himself has no authority over the reader. The valet of the Bible, I will translate it for you. He translated to German and began encouraging the translation of the Bible to local languages, and this was prohibited. Okay, enough. Good. The effect he had, there's no problem here. There is nothing here, but what impact did it have on the translation of the book, the sacred, and its spread that people discovered? Europeans discovered. He is the Messiah, not just one prophet. He is one from the series of the prophets of the children of Israel, or which is the Old Testament, and the Gospel, which is the Torah, tells you about prophets. There are many Isaiah and Enoch, meaning prophets of the children of Israel. Israel is very, and Christ is the last one of them, right? This is his book called The Messiah Was Born a Jew. This is part of that topic. Yes, it's the Catholic Church, meaning the first one. But let's focus on this impact. What happened? What happened was that a new public opinion emerged. What do you see? This is the land called Palestine, also known as Al-Sham, was home to prophets. Many Christians are just one of them. Okay, yes, good. The second thing is that Martin Luther, under his opposition to the Catholic Church, the things they call right were, he usually calls it north, the things that they call it north, which is what he usually says. Any right part of excellence and rivalry and hardship is part of these issues on which they disagreed. It contains the story of the Jews. How does the Catholic Church view Jews? I see the Jews as the ones who killed Christ, and that they threw stones at the Virgin Mary, the mother of the Jews, and the light are the ones who did not believe. Through Christ they became a misguided people. This is the kind of talk that it's in the Bible, the one that talks about the Jews, the prophets of the Jews, and that the Jews, they will return, for example, to Jerusalem as it is from. New words found in the Bible. This, guys, he tells you that he meant the Jews. The true ones are those who believed in Christ. He doesn't mean the Jews who are alive today. The Jews who exist in our time are the Jews, those who disbelieved in Christ and did not believe in him as a redeemer and no savior. Yes, that's why European history has always been martyrdom of the Jews in Europe. Luther told you no. The Jews told you that these were the ones meant in the Bible refers to the Jews who existed. Now you've forgotten that God was born a Jew. It means the Lord, who is the Lord. When he wanted to redeem people, he chose to be born a Jew into a Jewish family, and that he should arise among the tribes of the Jews. Here in the Western collective imagination, and with a spread, the Gospels began to form a new image of the Jews, not because they are enemies of the Lord and enemies of Christ. Rather, they are considered Jews displaced from Palestine. Yes, tie it up, sir. tie it up, sir. Considering the Jews displaced from Palestine and from it is our religious duty to work towards the return of the Jews to Palestine. That's how it was from the beginning. Yes, it's a religious duty. But why is it a duty? The religious aspect here remains a point of internal disagreement. Some people say, for this is the will of the Lord. The Lord brought the Jews, he put them here, got down, and had a child among them. And some people say, because the return of the Jews to this land is a prelude for the second coming of Christ, son of Mary. It means when the Jews go there and descend, their false Messiah will lead to the descent of Christ, Jesus, son of Mary. Meaning there are people who support his return, Jews to Palestine because she loves them and sees this. It is a religious duty. And some people support their return to Palestine because it hates them and sees this as an introduction, their annihilation, the descent of Christ, and the beginning of the Golden Age for Christians. Yes, but where did the agreement happen? Let those people know. They return to their place. Of course, this is all. Even if you, as a European, think we should do it. But how do we do it? It is close to the desires of the Jews. Their religious beliefs remain, but not all of Christianity. What did she become? Anti-Semitic. She became part of it. This part is close to it. It prevailed and became the official religion of the two strongest powers. Two European powers in history, two Western powers, England then America. Oh, so they became Protestants. They became Protestants. So this is the change. The first one happened in Europe and we left it behind. Now we'll close this scene and move on to the second change that happened in the world, Islamic. Yes, the significant change that occurred in the Islamic world. The Ottoman Empire weakened. After the big monster that was going to bring in us, and the one who took Constantinople, and the one who is finished. The European presence is threatened. Our moment of weakness has emerged. It is a very dangerous moment, a moment of state weakness. The Ottoman Empire, and especially the years it ruled. Muhammad Ali of Syria, Muhammad Ali the Ottoman governor in Egypt, which we talked about in the episode. This man ruled Syria for 10 years. These years, if only his name wasn't Muhammad Ali, as we said, when you see what Muhammad Ali did in the Levant expects that the one who ruled Egypt was, whether he was Christian or Jewish, he was a Protestant Christian, or was it a Jew who ruled Syria? I mean, 1831-40 are 1840, 4 years. Muhammad Ali's policies were aimed at foreigners are subject to the same rules as citizens, and regarding care, comments of Jews and Christians on Muslims, and he created enormous advantages for Jews and Christians. Huge advantages they never dreamed of. I think I explained it in detail in the episode we did. It is available in the book for those who wish to refer to it. In detail, these past few years have brought about a very dangerous shift in the entire Jewish cause is a matter of dreams. Judaism, from temples and churches to poetry, and the words of the dervishes and Sufis about them until the thought, until politics, parliaments, and the press began. She says, guys, we have an excellent opportunity. We'll get the Jews out of Europe and put them in Palestine. Okay, here's a moment. Yes, a very important moment. So, you will see, it is the beginning of real thinking about creating. Israel obtained in the last 10 years those whom Muhammad Ali ruled over the Levant. Because Muhammad Ali allowed Jewish influx and building a new Jewish synagogue. He oversaw Jewish and Christian endowments and destroyed Islamic endowments, enabled Jews to do things that were not. They imagine it and put Judah in the council. The administration of Jerusalem, the city, has tremendous achievements, and it's very big. Yes, in the last few years, thinking began to shift, but it's possible, and by God, that's not a good thing, and it's perfectly possible. The two major scenes I actually forgot one scene. Another incident that occurred among Europeans was a scene in which Europe also became secular, meaning, like, what emerged among us was not Protestantism, but rather a tendency. Secularism reached its peak in the French Revolution. Okay, So what exactly is the French Revolution? It has roots that extend back to the Italian Renaissance. The idea of the emergence of the idea of citizenship and the emergence of the idea that Muslims are like non-Muslims. There are no Muslims in Europe, but the Jewish idea is like our Christian idea. Citizens in a secular state. The state has no religion is a factor. All people are citizens of Europe. I entered the secular intellectual sphere, and this changed the situation from being an isolated Jewish minority to as citizens with rights. Therefore, they began to gradually benefit. By law, this means their social advancement. Yes, they became bankers. They became members of parliament. Later on, they would become ministers. They will be well-known figures. The situation of Jews in Western Europe grew. They preferred Eastern Europe and Russia and the Turk. They are oppressed, slaughtered, and everything. But their situation in Western Europe, they rose up and began to enter the context of power and parliaments. So they started leaving the kibbutzim that they were living in it. They started leaving the kibbutzim they lived there and started to become business owners. The Protestant denomination that sees the Jews. These are displaced Palestinians, and he returned them. It is a religious duty for the benefit of the Jews, or a duty. My religion is for the benefit of Christians. Yes, the situation that happened in Europe seized the opportunity, the one that existed during the time of Muhammad Ali, which is weak. The Ottoman Empire. So here, and so, the interests of three different parties converged regarding the return of Jews to Palestine. The first party are the religious Jews. The religious Jews found a suitable opportunity. The Ottoman monster was the uncle of the beast, and before him, of course, the beast, the Mamluks, the Ayyubids, and of course, those before them were the Umayyad and Abbasid states, and those before them were empire. All of this is now starting to weaken, and Europe has become the upper hand is the ultimate power. So this is an opportunity. Everyone, let's go to the first party in the Jews. They want to return and establish a state on the other side. There are Christians and Protestants among them. Those in positions of power see that bringing these people back. Jews are a religious obligation. Third-party Europeans, Christians who hate Jews, they see that these Jews are stealing Europe's money. It means that some element still hasn't gotten rid of it. Medieval beliefs told you, this is your chance, folks. Let's take this Jewish problem and round it up like this, and we throw it somewhere far from Europe instead of what do we have in every country every 50 or 100 years? Problems with the Jews, or so let's take them together and go put them down. In another part of it, by God, we're done with them. We will use them to occupy the Islamic world. They remain, meaning a colony under our control on this land. If you're Islamic, then you were a secular colonialist. You hated the Jews. You loved the Jews. You, a Jew in one of the cases that differ. Their motives, but their outcomes are consistent. It is now, folks, the Ottoman Empire. Weak chance, a chance to give the Jews a place in this, the verse in this area. Yes or Od. Okay, there's something to make easy, Mr. Muhammad, but before that, let's take it a little further with the topic. Just go back to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther, when he came, told you, my uncles don't understand the Bible, and to make them understand it, we need to understand some of the texts that appeared in the Torah. Resulted from this statement an idea called the doctrine of salvation or not. Yes, the doctrine of salvation is one in which the Jews were divided. I think there are two sections, meaning people told you, uncle, we can't stand those extremists. The religious Jews told you, it is not possible for us to establish our state on the land promised before the coming of Christ. Yes, it must appear later. We value the state, therefore we oppose going to this land even if they all agree. All the forces on earth are trying to bring us back, but we don't want to go back there. The secular Zionist ideology that told you, uncle, on the contrary, we need to establish a state before the emergence of Jesus. Okay, and so it came out to us later on. a little later, Theodore Herzl, and he wrote his book, Ad-Dollar. The state is a Jewish state. Jewish state. May God bless you. This question is the best way to connect what I said and what I am going to say now. The division within Judaism exists to this extent. The moment we're talking right now is perfect. It is the ultra-Orthodox, religious Jews who are present in Israel on the condition that they do not fight or they join the army. And you remember the days of the 2023 and 2024 wars, how Israel tried to recruit them and how clashes occurred between Jewish people and this. At the moment, we see that this state was established against God's will is good, so why did it happen? She did it because he appeared to be neither religious nor secular, nor was he keen to save the Jews who returned him to Palestine. That's one. Herzl, one who's coming from a different secular path. What did this one do? Herzl, simply put, was a young Austrian journalist. That's what she's saying, active. This man discovered that Europe, after 200 years, almost since its entry into secularism, it has remained. The innermost feelings of Western Christians are a law that will not eliminate racism and will not eliminate hatred of Jews, and therefore, hey you European folks, now you were once like this, meaning you destroyed each other in wars, my religion, and now, thank God, I've found a solution for you in peace with Westphalia and your division into nation-states. We just have a small problem. The Jews are not our people. They have a country. They are the countries that are sitting there doing this to you. What problems do you think? Should we create a state for them and be done with it? Whose thinking is this? Herzl. Oh, okay, Mr. Herzl, so you want the state. Where should we go? Russia? Uganda? We're going to Argentina. We're going anywhere. Sinner. Yes, he was the first man to look like this. Saving the Jews means that we take. The Jews are a nation. We put them in a nation, and that nation is called the state. Judaism has the end of problems for Jews, and it has. Europe's problems are over. That's good. The first people to stand up to Herzl and question him were the Jews. They themselves told you this is a Western Christian conspiracy first. They found themselves drawn into secularism and remained in. Our Valley Lord taught us how to get out of the kibbutzim. We still have money and we still have things they told us about. Go ahead and make yourselves a state. This is a conspiracy to expel the Jews of Europe after what they had reached. And who is this Herzl anyway? He's someone we've never known. We saw him in a synagogue, but he was never a worshipper. His age was religious, so he was essentially a Western Christian agent to expel the Jews from Europe after the expansion and the prosperity they achieved, or these were the first people to hate Herzl and doubt him. His invitation was to Herzl, on the other hand, and he's going around in circles, meaning he's moving forward with his project. Who should we show this to? Who is suitable? How can he help us with that? He discovered that the Jews would not move. He would be with him on this project unless the land, the promised land to which he will go, is Palestine. He is now addressing a society, and this society contains the need that they can agree upon is condemned. Their emotions are focused on the idea that they will return Palestine again. He himself wasn't even thinking about it, the issue of Palestine itself. But when the project was found, it wouldn't be possible to entice Jews. A Jew who leaves Europe, not a Jew. Yes, of course, America at that time was. It existed and there were Jews in it, but it wasn't. They have a problem when you tell someone to leave Europe and leave. Britain, France, and Spain are gone. Uganda or Argentina. He told you, okay, let's go to Palestine, especially. There were some attempts in Palestine that suggest the project is possible if we know how to utilize the time. Muhammad Ali, we would have known how to do it if we had known. We could have dealt with the Ottomans if unlock the years that Muhammad Ali did. Those are the same. The years that made it possible to produce the Jews to Palestine made the matter possible. Politicians are considering it after it was just a dream. Poets and dervishes. Yes, Herzl is still here, and of course I recommend reading him. Herzl's diaries are, of course, 4 in English volumes, but the Arabic version is the historian. Prominent Palestinian Anas Seg means annexation, similar to similar, with a few abbreviations. The Arabic version is approximately 600 pages long and is extremely detailed. The importance is for you to read, but your brain. Herzl. So what did Herzl do? He told you that he used to go to every country and address every official at the most suitable entrance. This official is religious. He approaches him through the lens of religion, the religious duty, and the person in charge who is not religious should enter. From a political standpoint, this official kept quiet. The money will be arranged for him. This official will keep quiet. The desires, the intention being that, what did Herzl begin to try? To obtain a Jewish state, but through the great powers, global, because we have a bitter history of failure from Jewish attempts to infiltrate the Holy Land. He sneaks in from here. The Ottomans are watching them. They're sneaking in from here. You know, it's not complete. And then I'll tell the Jewish people. How can I tell them to come and leave Europe and leave the situation you're in? Come sneak in, and you'll remain. Colonialism. For example, let's give quick examples because to put it simply, he would go to the Ottoman Sultan. For example, Abd al-Hamid. Of course, this is the easiest way. Abd al-Hamid has the land under his control, Your Excellency. Sultan, we Jews are oppressed all over the world, and oppression has been present throughout history, and you see the oppression. What's happening in Russia, of course, is Russia in that. During that time, there were massive massacres of Jews and immense persecution and their placement in horrific pens because the Jews were accused of assassinating Caesar, Russian Alexander 1881. And from here began the tragedy of the persecution of the Jews in Russia, nations. So what should Pharaoh say to him? He tells him, we have not found Jews anywhere in the world, nor at any time in the world there is mercy, care, and safety, peace be upon you, except from the Muslims. Your Excellency, Sultan, grant us a state for the Jews. In this part, of course, when he was offering, Abdul Hamid wasn't performing at Al-Quds. He was what's on display, a little way east of Jerusalem and far away, far from the Holy Land. He can't show the Holy Land itself, or a state for the Jews, and this Jewish state will be the most complete. Countries, it's reasonable for us to go and support the Ottoman Sultanate. We neither support the English nor the French. We don't support the Spaniards, nor do we support the Russians. Each one of them, they persecuted us against the Muslims who protected us. Wow, they took care of us. It's impossible. I know that the Ottoman Empire is in crisis. Malir Adi, the Jews will donate 20 million lira. Wow, number. Okay. And all the Jewish capabilities that I see this in Europe from university professors, for merchants and media figures. And I know there's a campaign. The media is unfair to you, O state. The great Ottoman Empire. All of this will be to its advantage. Who? The Ottoman state, and in favor of the Sultan. Okay, and pay attention, Your Majesty, to the offer. The tempting offer I'm giving you. You've never seen anything like it before. You'll find someone else who offered it to you because there's no one else. You see this land as sacred, but not to us. There is no Christian, no Hindu, and no Buddhist. No one, absolutely no one, will come and try to buy this land, and he pays all this money for it. Yes, of course, indeed, at that time the state was also. The Ottoman Empire was suffering and needed the age. She was a media personality and needed money, that's true, but Abdul Hamid took the famous, well-known stance. This was rejected and refused by Herzl, but Abdul Hamid, as a shrewd politician, he did not cut ties with him. He told him, just try to calm the Armenians down, try. We are involved in the matter of establishing newspapers and media outlets. Serving the important Ottoman state means when. The match between Abdul Hamid and Herzl continues. Abdul Hamid eliminated Herzl and took everything from him. He gave him something and didn't give him anything in return. or he gave him a medal, meaning, yes, in the end, I mean, yes, because Herzl actually created, was with, the Ottomans were against the removal of Abdul Hamid. He tried to calm the Armenians and all that until Hertz. He himself admitted that Abdul Hamid had tricked him, meaning, he goes to the English and tells them what? Look, you guys did something great. For example, ban Anto control the Suez Canal. The British were occupying Egypt at that time and controlled it. On the Suez Canal, you seized the sea route between east and west, and that's what made you superior, and that's what decided the battles between you and France. The enemy or your worm, what do you think? I have a project for a Jewish state that you can control too. On the highway, the road remains your sea route, and the road, your land, is yours, so no one can move from east to west, except under the verse, under English influence, and of course, this will make your empire strong. It's stable, and there are no economic projects possible. The Germans can do it, but the French couldn't. No international competitor could do it because you, holding the heart of the world, of course, the religious ones among them also enter through the same entrance. Religion goes to the French, goes to the Russians, and goes for the Germans. Each one. Herzl presented him with a project of the state. You will improve the situation of Christians with it. And of course, all of this contradicts itself to such an extent. For example, I'm telling you, this was her, and it was a flame. Even Mustafa Kemal, who is the leader, was active. The Egyptian patriot saw him touring Europe like that. He condemned the British occupation, saying, by God, this is an opportunity. We agree with this young man. I wish Mustafa Kemal and the national movement, the Egyptians, knew how to liberate Egypt from the British. Because the Suez Canal was lost by the British, this will make them even more eager to establish a Jewish state. In the Levant, they lost the sea route. They take the overland route. Oh Lord, the important thing is that you're the one who should talk about it. Of course, I'll keep it brief. The whole effort was a failure. Why did it fail? It failed for two reasons. The first one is named Abdul Hamid, standing on a mountain. He opposed the implementation of this project, and Herzl died early. Herzl died at 44. All the fuss I'm making, I'm telling you this, he died at the age of 44. There's something strange about it. Yes, please go ahead. There's something strange about it. I understand that the Sultan, Abdul Hamid, rejects Herzl's project, right, because those who speak on the land will not listen to the Jews. They come to her. And we consider him a real man who's been good to them. Amazing from the first moment. Okay, weren't we just talking a little while ago? Europeans, Russians, the whole world, they hate their presence and want to get rid of them. The way I do it is that Herzl comes to me and offers me the project. I'm going to refuse, but why would I refuse? What's the point? Why did the English reject it? And why did the Russians reject it? Why are they refusing? None of the countries refused, but all of them know that it's not. A state can only be established with a sultan's permission. The Ottomans, or we will enter a war. God will destroy us. Yes, if there were alliances, they were with the state, the Ottomans, and we can't afford to miss out and get into a battle. Big, I mean. Okay, so let's try. I want to tell you, the effort to establish a Jewish state by Abd al-Hamid, and before him Herzl, is the original Herzl, meaning the seed of the attempt succeeded, but before that there was attempts, but the Ottomans rejected and thwarted them, and Abd al-Hamid had decisions before he even appeared. Herzl, before he established the Jewish state. Yes, why were the Europeans putting pressure on us? For example, the Ottoman state did not accept Jews, those fleeing Russian persecution. This is something contrary to human rights. Abdul Hamid says they have a medical condition that you don't accept, or he says he'll publish it. Announcement to Russian Jews: you are welcome in no place in the Ottoman Empire except in Palestine. And then Abul Hamid puts in place preventive measures. The entry of Jews into this land was only for a limited time. It is defined and Jerusalem is under its jurisdiction, meaning it is subordinate to it. He forms a committee to study the reasons that make the Jews know how to circumvent the laws and sneak around. He owns land. Ottoman resistance to the establishment of the state. Judaism even before Abul Hamid, but Abul al-Hamid was expected. This matter involves the intention to create, in his own words, a Mosaic government means a Jewish government. In this country, Abul Hamid, the Ottoman state made a great effort in limiting Jewish immigration, meaning which is supported by foreign consuls and endorsed by them. European countries in this land, yes, exactly as detailed as we find in the book and the episodes. And by the way, Theodore Herzl is discussing the land and a place he'd never seen before. Yes, except once, correct? When the German emperor arrived, they met in Jerusalem, and this talk was preceded, of course, small test, his work, and Herzl's role with Max Nordau. I think, yes, Max Nordau's friend, a doctor, told him to go see. Lee is the land they're talking about. I mean, ultimately, whether it works or not, we need to start. Let's see if this project works or not. So he sent messengers to Max Nordau, and they sent him. The telegraph told him, yes, the bride is beautiful. But she's married, and we need to get to her. The husband, who is the people, must be killed. Yes, it means it has land, it has. He was angry with Abul Hamid, and when he offered an attempt to assassinate Abul Hamid, but he was the one who carried it out. He feared that if this attempt failed, it would mean complete destruction of the project, or this means the project will be completely finished. Okay, fine, I want to tell you something like that. This situation is consistent throughout the Palestinian story, confirming the saying, God Almighty says, whatever misfortune befalls you is because of what you have earned. Your hands mean we'll see whether it's a creation, Israel, or its establishment and continuation to this day, the moment of effort, which means that most of this was caused by the effort of Arab and Muslim hypocrites and traitors. Yes, more than the effort that the Jews can achieve by themselves or by colonizing themselves. But Herzl, he had a rule that he would never allow that the Jews infiltrate and then act independently. No, this is against our project. Yes, confusion ensued within the Zionist movement after his death. Herzl means Hertz from 1904. The one who died was succeeded by two others, one of whom was named Wilson, whose name is Wartburg, from 1920 until Chaim Weizmann took over. That's the strong person, meaning the two leaders after Herzl. These countries were a bit tired, so they weren't in the same boat. Herzl's competence is better than Chaim Weizmann's. Weizmann remained the one who introduced the fundamental change on this plan, but Chaim Weizmann was luckier than Herzl for him because the Ottoman Empire was defeated in the war. The First World Order, of course, descended into chaos afterward. Abul Hamid took off the words we had spoken. In the previous episodes, this chaos was in it. Some Jews reached positions. He was a minister in the Committee of Union and Progress government, and then Mustafa Kemal abolished the Ottoman Caliphate and retained. This is within the borders of modern Turkey, and he told you everything. The rest of it isn't ours. We don't care. So at that time, Chaim Weizmann was beginning to change. I think the 7th Zionist Congress began. He changes this plan and makes it. It is all that we can push to whom we are pushing the Jews to this land so that we may grow. The problem remains an international situation that supports the existence of and the establishment of a Jewish state. Okay, this is the path of the Zionist movement and its leaders. This era will continue to operate at full capacity, and it is actually one of chemists will continue working with all their might on the level of politicians, especially in Britain, and Louis George's level, who is the head of government, too, that it will happen until Israel does. And by the way, here's something we shouldn't forget: Lawyer George himself. He was a devout Protestant who wrote in his diary, "Oh, so he's convinced." Of course, yes, he writes this dangerous word in his diary. He says, "I know the names of the villages in the land. The holy places are more sacred than the villages of Britain, and memorize the names of the prophets of the children of Israel more than save the kings of Britain." You are in front of a personality, flat, saturated. The necessity of returning the Jews to this country. So, who was the head of the government that he was in? By the fur. Yes, we need to link this statement to the decision that he came out, and the document that came out was a promise of victory. I mean, the man, basically, is this Louis George Terry is more important than Arthur Bellevue. That's absolutely true. Seriously, I mean, I don't know why that one is shiny and this one. Child, the promise, because the promise was attributed to him. But Louis George is a far more important figure than Balfour or Ode. This scene has a parallel in another scene in our world, Arab and Islamic world. Now, when you look at the earthquake that he got, of course, we talked about the last days of the state, the Ottoman Empire, and we talked about it in the episode on the Arab Revolt. How did England, Britain, manage to? Palestine is occupied. We've already discussed this. It should not be forgotten that even under occupation, she could have occupied Palestine were it not for the effort that she sought help from the Egyptians, its ability to recruit workers and soldiers, and the Egyptian engineers, if it weren't for the Sharif Revolution, Hussein, which is what the Great Arab Revolt was called. Without these two things, Britain would not have been. Yes, this is the one who came claiming to be a representative, Sarmi for Palestine, yet on the basis that he is British, but he is a Zionist, and more dangerous than being a Zionist is that it is the year 1915. Send to Palestine an astronomer researching this issue of establishing a Jewish state. He wrote a report stating the land conditions. The circumstances are not suitable for establishing a state. Jewish now, even if we were to consider establishing a state Jewish now, we are the ones who judge the project. Failure and waiting for the Jewish state 2 more years are better than sacrificing the project. We are forced to wait for it for several more centuries, but therefore Herbert Samuel recommends that Britain needs to come and occupy this place itself. It is the one that sponsors the establishment of the Jewish state. Therefore, from 1917 to 1920, this was a period of military rule. After the British occupation, 1920, please, Mr. Hibbert, stand firm, my friend. The report is for you, the administration of Palestine, and it was the first civil governor in Palestine from 1920 to 1948. We're talking about a period of approximately 30 years in which Britain has been sponsoring the establishment of an Israeli state. A Jewish state in Palestine is under occupation, and that's why this happened. Here's the answer to your question, which is, why is it that the entire Arab world has been liberated except for Palestine? Because Britain, that's the situation. The only place she wanted was here to be a state. It will not be a Palestinian state, but rather a Zionist state, or Egypt, because it is an occupying power and it abandoned King Pharaoh, and the Egyptian governments left the Free Waft Party. The constitutionalists don't know what they're playing at with each other. But the country is under occupation. Hidden like that, a half-and-half occupation gives it independence, or for example, just as she is the ruler of Jordan, and with her is Abdullah bin Sharif Hussein, like the ruler of Iraq, and with her, Faisal bin Sharif Hussein. The occupation, the British occupation, was indirect, meaning it was based on the system is we don't rule Egypt, we rule those who rule Egypt. Palestine, no, under the mandate, Palestine. Oh, the mandate, that's a nice name for occupation. Or, what does under mandate mean? Since he basically he creates a strange state out of nothing. So here began the implementation of the Balfour Declaration, which is the promise, the contradiction within himself. What does he tell you? Half the Balfour Declaration is viewed by His Majesty's government with a positive eye. Compassion for the establishment of a national homeland for the Jews in Palestine is on the right track, so focus here, provided that this does not lead to anything that would diminish among the rights of non-Jewish communities residing in Palestine. Look, Palestine had nothing but what? It has no inhabitants, no people, no friends, land where non-Jewish people are present in the area, and that the conditions of the Jews in any country should not be diminished. Europe, who is this a response to? A response to the Jews, those who are afraid that Herzl, the conspiracy to expel Jews from Europe, remains. He told them, no, this is the state that will be established here. It will not affect the situation of the Jews residing in Europe, not despite the gains they have achieved, or when the British forces landed and began to graze. The establishment of a Jewish state began to operate on two tracks, different paths. First, a Jewish government is established. It remains like a seed and then grows. It is growing into a parallel power to the British authority. It means the British government itself is involved. I mean, there are English Zionist Jews in it, and they're in control. Immigration, holding onto the land, holding onto the thing, meaning they hold important files, but they are also creating power. The Jewish agency is letting them. This means they can represent the Jews and work. They develop projects based on their own interests and export goods. They're building a Hebrew university and all that stuff, while, at the same time, it never allows representation of the people. Palestinian means there is no such thing as a people. Palestinian, and she works in this way, by all means, that it causes Mohammed, don't you see that the English position is something strange and paradoxical? This transformation means a strange shift. Where did we begin? We told you that Martin Luther came up with an idea called the doctrine of salvation, according to the Jews, is the idea. They split off. The religious people told you it's impossible before that. The Messiah, the Zionists, and the secularists are coming. He told you, no, we must establish the state. Now the Jewish question before the Euro, for Europeans, and especially for Jews, it's a matter of religion, no political interests. When first Herzl turned, that's how people, including the English, rejected it because, in the Ottoman state, good, excellent state, the Ottoman Empire, is what we were trying to. We love her, so she went away. Yes, and there was an opportunity for us to occupy the land, a mandate, not mandate, we occupy it. What do we want with the Jews? We bring them, put them down, and then we turn our backs. Okay, why the English? They changed their stance on the issue. The Jews wanted to establish a presence on the land of any country. My people are with the Jews, and they were initially opposed. Absolutely beautiful, very beautiful. If it's all about interests, then forget about religion and beliefs. All this talk. First, I want to prove and confirm that the English effort to establish a state, his Jewish heritage predates Herzl, meaning before he became a Jew. In Herzl pure, the British government in particular was in the 1940s and 1950s. 1,800 things, 40 things, 18 things, 50 things were insistent on Ottoman Sultan by allowing the Jews to establish a state in Palestine before. Hertz was 40 years old and was a strong British man. At that time, the head of government was a minister. His name is Palmerston External. Palmerston is the most similar to him in our time. We know him now, Kissinger. Consider him Kissinger. Time passed and that era was filled with insistence. It is very difficult for the Ottomans to allow the establishment of a state for the Jews here, and the Ottomans were. They completely refuse. So what I mean is the effort. The Englishman, before he arrived, before Herzl came, the reason for this is that the Jews are working against us. We don't want them. We don't want them. No, they don't actually believe. The reason here, Sheikh Murad, is that it involves a combination of factors. We said that 3 or 4 directions met. Their interests ultimately matter. even if the duration differs. So, they mean we have a secularist who wants to expand his colonial influence, and we have the religious person who wants to carry out God's will from his point of view, and we have those who hate the Jews, and I want to expel them all from his land, despite their differences. These trends might be within the same government. They are all in one government, so their motives will differ. They will agree on the procedure they are going to follow. They do it, okay, therefore, you cannot attribute politics to a single goal or a single motive. All of this is interconnected. This is especially important because it's the idea of creating a state. The Jews attract non-Christian human energy. So now I will think for you from the perspective of the secularist and the Christian who hates the Jews he loves the Jews, so his position is understandable, but a secular person who doesn't believe in their religion isn't interested. And the Messiah who hates the Jews will see that establishing a Jewish state within the Islamic body, its advantages are excellent. You are sacrificing Jews, not people. Muslims are not Christians to him, and they themselves want to go back. So let them in. This fight and this brawl, by God, they won. For the best, and thank God they didn't win, we're rid of them. They are a place of influence, needing to know how to intervene every now and then. What do you mean by the rights of the Jews, like you used to say a little while ago? The rights of Christians and the rights of Mormons and the rights of the Druze are complete, meaning the idea that there is a minority. You are capable. It protects her, or rather, it means being able to intervene on her behalf, and the idea that they themselves have the motivation to, they are fighting. And all of this is very useful to Western politicians, because the battle is raging between his Jewish enemies and the But we have people. They kill, they are ready to pay with blood, they are ready to pay money and illusions, an advanced Western military base. Therefore, the establishment of Israel is, in the view of many historians and analysts, an excellent Western solution for maintaining European bloodlines, preserving American blood and preserving Christian blood. It's excellent that you know how to recruit a mercenary army. And abandoning his state. This state does all the dirty work for you. And the other dirty things, meaning those that end in, the end result is to confirm your influence, Western influence. And indeed, the connecting rope is, okay, that's why you'll find Biden, and you'll find Trump. They all say, let's imagine what could happen. America would pay if Israel didn't exist. How many military bases would we have needed to build? How many soldiers would we have needed to fight with? In the end, this is more of a Western solution than a Jewish one, which is the creation of Israel and Britain. When she created a Jewish state that she never imagined, she will withdraw. No, she was still ruling Egypt through the king. Jordan is controlled by the king, while Iraq is controlled by the king controls the Gulf and the Arab states through its kings and princes. A Jewish state will still rule through its authority. Britain at that time imagined that yes, the day will come when she will leave, and that's it. The Israelis will side with the Americans and fight the British that wasn't present in that time, and the British, when they wanted to establish the national homeland for the Jews was the goal. They control the area, naturally, and that's not all. I also mean this geographical area. There are people there whose lives are determined by this geography. The small one is through these people, not those people. We've got them under control, that's for sure. Yes, they will rule, it's the same pattern, but just as there are Arab governments here, there will be here Jewish government. This pattern means that the English have a hand in it, the upper class, and they will leave this area to become a state. A Jewish state under their influence means, just like in Egypt, and just as there are Sudanese, and just as there are Jordanian women, and there are Iraqi women, and so on. Meaning, well, these are the masters of management, who are English. Yes, why do they stay for 40 years on secondment and such? I'll finish it from the first day the gang brought it. and they trained them to rule. There is no Ottoman state, because the capabilities don't allow it. As we said, the bride is married, the land is full of Palestinians, the land is full. It is inhabited by Palestinians and its lands are owned by them. He's doing this, so I'll tell you about it. Something you know after 30 years, after 30, a year of effort. The Israeli had 8% of the land and 30% from the population was, it means all the tremendous, terrible English effort, all the efforts of the working Arab governments. He was only able to seize 8% of Palestine land and 30% of the population. Okay, so how did the disaster happen? I got it because Arab armies. This means that the Arab armies entered Palestine in the year 48 and the Palestinians have more than 90% of the land and 70% of the population. The Arab armies withdrew and Israel took 78% from the ground. Imagine disaster. Meaning disaster. Yeah, naturally. Therefore, I'm telling you, Herbert, be firm when he writes in his report saying it is not possible now. Talking about establishing a homeland for the Jews because there is no possibilities. This is to work to take this land. Witnessed massacres in Jaffa and massacres in Haifa. Okay, he carried out displacement and was in control of the area. The systems of government, specifically in Egypt and Jordan, because Egypt and Jordan are involved in the issue. The Palestinians are the two great gates. Okay, we stopped at Herbert Smaila. Samuel, yeah, what did that guy do? He sows the seed of the Jewish state. Which is like, for example, recognizing Hebrew as an official language. The laws governing land transfer apply to all land. It has no owner. All land is common property. Every piece of land says, the ruler comes to the ruler. He goes and gives it to the Jews. Separate education is permitted for they migrate to England and save half Jewish children only so they can immigrate to Israel will choose the second option. Hertz was a writer in his diaries of countries. Anti-Semitism is our strongest ally because countries that want to get rid of the Jews they have. The Jews don't want to leave their country. In fact, Israeli policy is based on we need people by any means necessary. Even if it was through killing and coercion, it means she didn't bring them. Advertising. The verse answers them. The massacres answer them. It's normal, I mean. Yes, of course. Of course, this is like I told you, a file containing words. A lot, and the two words I'm saying are a chapter. Roger Garrity wrote 3 books about them. The Task of Gravediggers, Tombs and Founding Myths, Israeli Policy, and the third one, What Did You Forget? Many of the returnees. I mean, the idea that Zionism, she even collaborated with the Nazis in order to obtain the Jewish human material is an idea. Of course. By the way, Herzl has a saying in his book, the Jewish state should spit in our faces. We need to sink deeper to grasp the concept. Zionism or the Jewish idea. And by the way, if we're talking about movements, Islamic, I want to tell you about the movement. Zionism has many aspects, of course, because it is a movement. Social in the end, I mean, what does that mean? Humans are similar. In the Zionist movement, most of them were not believer in success. He asks you, how so? Is it reasonable that something like that, we failed at it for 3,000 years and now we're going to succeed? So, when you're talking to a Muslim in the return of the caliphate, may God grant it to you. 2 caliphates, where do you live and in what era? Even though the caliphate is only 100 years old. Yes, how could someone who was listening think about bringing him back? A country that is 3,000 years old. Yes, for example, you might find people who reach the point of despair. She says we're basically sons of, and we are basically a people upon whom God's wrath has fallen. like what we are saying now in our Arab world. And we, if God were pleased with us, would. The state was established for us a long time ago, and by the way, they are among them. People who have moved from being fighters for the cause. Zionism turned into Nazi collaborators, as you can see. Now even some jihadists are fighting in Afghanistan, and in the end you find him working with state security is in another place, meaning after despair, he suffered defeat, and in one piece, he is about to arrive. But, I mean, when you delve into these details, you'll find the Zionist movement is a human movement. What's wrong with that? Yes, it has all the problems. We've reached the point of Samuel's death. Well, we just know only recently. Professor Muhammad, if we date it back to 1917, then how many parts of Palestine do we want to achieve? We say from 1900 to the present, from 1917 to 1948. This is a period of British occupation. The British are working with all their might. They will establish a Jewish state. Imagined measures to suppress and subjugate society. The Palestinians were torn apart and displaced. This is one side of the Palestinian issue. They experienced a psychological shock, the first of its kind for them in their Palestinian history. Since the country is in the hands of the Islamic armies, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Khalid ibn al-Walid, and the Great Group. These are countries that are finding themselves completely alone for the first time. Neither in a state nor in a political leadership. Nobody thinks about us. Nobody sees us. He's responsible for us, meaning we were previously with the state, the Umayyads before that, along with the Abbasid state before, so under Fatimid rule, my lord of victory, before that, then the Ayyubids, then the Mamluks, then the Ottomans, meaning its age. Palestine was not our state on its own, it is now the first. Sometimes they are surprised to find out what they have become, etc. The man, Mustafa, also said here, this is my 2ki. You live your lives, we're not here. Since no one was defending us, that's when the idea began to take root. Palestine, for the first time, is here. The one that is in this part identifies him as Palestinian before. So if you ask him what we see in that is the Qassam movement. And Al-Qassam, of course, is considered a terrorist organization by today's standards. Al-Qassam declared a revolution, and then, as in the first, he clashed with the British and was martyred in 1935. But his martyrdom was accompanied by other circumstances. In the year 36, the Great Palestinian Revolt began. This Great Palestinian Revolution lasted 3 years, from 1936 to 1939. This was one of the most brilliant and wonderful moments of the Palestinian people. Imagine this exhausted, depleted, and weakened society. The one who had nothing was able to liberate everything. The Palestinian countryside sometimes managed to control. In some British cities, it was necessary to respond. 100,000 soldiers means all Palestinians are included. The time they were 400,000. A rate of 1 British soldier for every 4 citizens, Palestinians, and they are reoccupying Palestine once again. It was something amazing, of course, for those who follow the news. This revolution. Okay, I had a question prepared for you. Call his name. Yes, that's the British scene. Let's leave the global Zionist issue aside for now. This poor people who were living on the ground, and he was just sitting there watching like that, or not. This is a bit of a joke, let's talk about it a bit, but I want us to proceed with the general classification. Professor Muhammad, from 1917 to 1948, this was a mandate. 48, the Nakba happened to us, correct? Let's work a little. 67, that's right. This is the third stage, contemporary history, meaning, you could say that 1967 was the second catastrophe. For example, the second catastrophe, which is called the Nakba for us, which is called the setback. Yes, then 73, the then 73 and then 79, which was 79. The normalization process and Egypt's exit from the battle, which is the second oftenhood for the Palestinians, meaning like the first often is the one who has no disagreement. Ottoman. The second tragedy is that even the Egyptians abandoned us after we were not in a state of Arab nationalism. Okay, and the man, President Abdel Nasser, kept saying, we will throw Israel into the sea and liberate Palestine. And what are these gangs now? Hey guys, you liberate your land, we liberated ours. Our land, after 79. After 79, you go to 87, the first intifada. Then 2000, the second intifada. Okay, then, in 2005, the liberation of Gaza. Then 2023, which is the final battle. It happened in 2023, one of the most horrific massacres in contemporary history on release. Yes, okay, this general periodization has a story. This general periodization. Let's work for you, in short, if that means in this. For details, just ask me. Let's begin. Okay, where do we start? I'll tell you, for example, a period. Mandate period. We can simply say the following. The British are sponsoring the establishment of a Jewish state. The Jewish woman created everything up until the year 48. We needed to put up the sign, which is the area. This is called Israel, put up the sign. But the security apparatus, which is now Mossad, established in 1919, the military apparatus, which is the Guard. The colonies considered it from 1919 to 1920 the device. The security officer who became known as Al-Mossad in 1925 was founded. Hebrew University. And the Hebrew University was a very important moment because the Hebrew University was a global inauguration. They were present. Then Chaim Wiseman and Samuel Fled, General Allenby and Winston Churchill, who, British Colonial Secretary, and Balfour. The promise was kept, and of course, Ahmed Lafi El Said was present, President of the Egyptian University, and Professor Tahir Hussein, the Dean of Arabic Literature, sent a congratulatory telegram with the opening of the Hebrew University. Look, we're talking about Palestine now. I want people to remember that it's on the Palestinian side like this. There have been Arab betrayals at every stage. And they turned against the English. And the first people to turn against them were those who brought them into the world. They blew up their ship, and they blew up the Samira Mess Hotel. King David, yes, and in Cairo they assassinated Lord Moyne. He was a minister. This was because Professor Muhammad. It was because of Mr. Churchill. A book called The White Book was published. So what made him come out? This white paper will help us get back on track. Secondly, I am now on the second path. This is the path. There is resistance, as we said, that has reached its peak. Her cases in the 1936 revolution to 939 World War Roman II began in 1939, and Hitler. It began to sweep across Europe, and Britain was in need. If it focuses its military efforts on the fronts with Germany, it is necessary to calm the Palestinian situation. With all the military and all the politics, we want to reach for peace. They then issued the White Book. It says that we will stop Jewish immigration. We will reduce Jewish immigration, and then we will stop it, and then we will secure the rights of the Palestinian people. The White Paper was intended to calm things down. The Palestinians, however, rejected this White Paper. Why did the Zionists reject him? They rejected him because he would be an obstacle. The path of the state. This state is originally made up of people who live in it, and because of the persecution of the Jews, the Jews in Germany were human material in my hands. Garzira, which is you coming right now. At some point, some people come alone after we've been exhausted. If we bring them here now, you'll go and say, Litaki restricted Jewish immigration, so they rejected it completely, and then they also sought to prove that Britain was in this. The war weakened him, and America is the one that took it by force, so it began. From here, opposition to Britain increases, and after this is how the opposition to Britain will reach its peak. When World War II ends and remains, America wants to inherit the legacy of old colonialism. I want the places that were under influence. The English are under American influence. The Zionist movement then moved its center from Britain, provided agriculture for America and worked for the Americans in liquidating the British presence. Oh God, then the operations that were against the British and the bombing of the King David Hotel, which is the headquarters of the civil military administration and civilization for the English. They have no friend, no one to befriend them. I mean, Churchill himself. You know Churchill. He has a famous saying when they ask him, "What about the people in Palestine?" He said to him, "You don't say. It's this calf or cow that owns the barn, because she has been there for a long time." Sheikh, the word screen means that all Palestinians are these. They are like what animal was sitting in. The enclosure never truly belongs to anyone. This is Churchill's philosophy from his 20s. His minister for the UAE, now that he is Prime Minister, Tamim, was the one standing in front. The Security Council bitterly complains about the attacks, which is led by Zionist gangs against the army. The British are threatening, of course, meaning they're making promises, but all he knew the responses would be weak because he was already within the British administration. There were Jews, Zionists, and then of course America. When she loves the old colonial system, she doesn't say anything. The world is saying, guys, I want to be a colonizer. Instead of British colonialism, what do you say? She says we defend the freedom of peoples and the right, self-determination, and that colonialism was something from ancient times, and now it's no longer useful. Zionism, it colored itself to be a liberation movement, which is us. We are defending our homeland from British colonialism. So, who was the American arm that expelled, in expulsion, the British from this place? Okay, yes, even until Britain's departure from Palestine, it was on. This is the style that has harmony and consistency. What did Britain do? She said now, in the United Nations. United Nations, a new world order. You had assigned me and appointed me. If I were to rule Palestine under the mandate, what would that mean? In colloquial terms, it means, look, everyone, this place, there are people in this country who don't know how to govern themselves, or so we want someone civil. The story, I mean honestly, yes, of course there is American pressure. Imagine the unit he trained in his army. He armed them and taught them about manufacturing and everything else. They turned against him and later became the Camel Corps and the Bamak, and I don't know who and who. The Parmach are the special forces of the Camel Corps, but then he split on the Aragonese Camel Corps. W. Stern. Yes, okay. And then we had the Israeli Defense Forces. W. Stern. The extremist organization. Stern sent a message to the Germans so that you can tell them how we should deal with them and cooperate with you against the British presence. Hey, imagine that. Tayyip, that was the mandate period that ended. Which ended in, I think it was May 1948. The British flag was lowered and the flag was raised. Israeli, yes, and so we declared the end of the mandate, but that occasion is English. Why did they choose this date? I mean, why? They set this date for the end. I don't know, I mean, to be precise, I don't know if. I really don't know, it might be details, administrative, but I didn't find in my research the reason why they chose this date for a political purpose, for example. Yes, and why, for example, did the United Nations make a decision? So they agreed that, what is the United Nations doing? They sent a committee, and then he issued the decision to divide the country. Britain, after you leave, Israel remains a Jewish state and a state, Arabic, which is Resolution 181. Yes, Israel owns 55% of the land. and the Arabs will take 45% of the land, of course, deduct from the 55 and 45 are a bit like the Jerusalem area and Beit. They said that Meat would become an international zone because it's a holy area and we don't want any trouble. Or, okay, Jerusalem and Jaffa. Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, and Jaffa. This is a committee report, but the first one, which was at the beginning of the strike, yes, indeed. Committee, but correct, which is at the beginning of the strike. So the important thing, sir. Okay, so we consider that the mandate period is over, huh? We are entering a phase of catastrophe. Ask, the Nakba is a very long story. Of course, it hasn't even begun yet. The Nakba did not begin in 1948, but the result was in 1948, and that's when I decided this emerging state is now finished imposing its presence by force. Yes, by force. Yes, yes, at the moment when this Palestinian, or the person who lived on this land when he sees these migrations and starts building like this. They established their settlements, built their fields, and began to cultivate the land. This simple farmer notices that he is coming out of his land is sitting, correct? And the mother is passing by with her daughter, and the daughter says to her, her mother asks, "Who are these people?" She replies, "These are the people. They're poor people who came to live with us. Let them eat, and they drink while it keeps going." That's it, that's it. Quite simply, this is how it starts. Meaning, correct? In the 1948 before we begin her story, Professor Muhammad in one of them is sitting there telling us, "Hey guys, you're all talking like this is the land itself. Yes, the Ottoman Empire fell, and someone else, but it's as if the land has no men in it. There are no people there who resist, no people like that. Where are these people? Or did they sell it? You know, it's a story they sold. Yes, of course. Yes, we have been here since the fall of the Ottoman Empire. Until the Nakba, we were just sitting and watching. They're stealing our land and we're staying silent. They are killing us, and we have no mother. Were we silent? We were not our people who submitted, resisted, and obstructed the project, and he hindered them in ways they never imagined. Yes, there is a truly beautiful statement by Ahmed al-Shugari that he was the first president of the Palestine Liberation Organization. The Palestinian was saying, if you're counting the paper and the pen, if I considered the situation, the Jewish state would be, it will happen after 3 years, not after 1 year. What made it 30 years and not 3 years? This brave Palestinian people did what they did. He carves into the rock to remain on his land. The Palestinians were literally without resources. We said it's the first. It means with old rifles, sometimes with stones. By clinging to his land and of course, to the English, they were performing this operation under a pot, a huge amount of laws, regulations, and administration. It's not in a blatant way. He always tries to take everything he wants is through laws and through. This means he behaves in society in ways that make him mediator and judge. For example, he has an administrative system. Why does he treat the employees so harshly? Jews and Christians have educated people among them. City kids are not village kids, and he plays on these contradictions between Muslims and Christians, Jews and Christians on one side and Muslims on the other. One side is between the villagers and the city dwellers. On one side, there is a divide between the rich and the poor. Other schools he established were missionary schools, and missionary schools, some of those who attended them, and they went out into it, sometimes clinging to one another. British occupation and admiration for Western thought, and in the end, guys, these are oppressed Jews, not they find a place in the world and come here like them. Just because you're like them doesn't mean they'll take your land. What I mean is there's a media machine and an administrative system. This means there are no cases of seizure. The palace is only very rarely built built on the land and is completed. B means through legal and judicial means and in courts. Or, okay, I mean the idea that and then even people, those who say that it is the Jews, or the Muslims, or some, the Palestinians sold their land. The percentage of land sold was less than 1%. Before the Palestinian even felt that he was in danger, he was Jewish, meaning he wasn't from the general public. Before there was an internet, and before there was on satellite channels, all their introductory materials were "the world learns from them." These are the newspapers. And after a while, it became radio stations. At that time, it was forbidden to bring in anything about the Balfour Declaration to Palestine was written in the newspapers, for example, or in other cases, and even the one who knew was, is he studying in Egypt or somewhere else? Secondly, even those who know that there is such a thing as a promise, when Balfour comes to talk to the Palestinians, they don't believe him. What do you mean? What are the Jews coming to take? What are they taking? Hopes are gone. Where is the Arab world going? Meaning, it was something very weak. You're still like this up until now, at this moment, with all the experience, the history we have gone through and all the events. The first thing you should say to Egyptians, for example, is, by the way, the Jews might take Sinai, and you'll ask why. We're not men, so where's the Egyptian army? Great, this talk is unacceptable. We sent them in October. And these are the illusions that it still controls people's minds. So what? Think about people who have no experience. It was historical and they didn't have the means to know these plans at that time. Yes, if the broken record is that the Palestinian sold out his land means we're done with him, that's enough. This has become a very silly excuse. No one says it anymore. Now, with the spread of information, and nobody talks about statistics, but I'm telling you, until the 48th, if they were Palestinians, would they have remained? Why did the Jews wage war on their land? Medicine. Why did they commit massacres? So why did they carry out the displacement? If this is true, so what made us enter into a war that's over? Their land remained, but they don't talk about two situations. Yes, these are just cases. I'm saying cases. Before people realized that. And then it was. We have an Islamic conference in 1931 and an Islamic conference, the year 1935, and specifically the conference of 1935. Issued. A fatwa issued by a conference of scholars means that they issued a fatwa prohibiting it, selling land to Jews and declaring those who do so as infidels, because this isn't just about selling to citizens in the same way. Part of a larger project and was in motion, resistance, whether from the days of Al-Qasim or later, when Farhan al-Sardi took over, or later during the 1936 revolution, there were those who tracked down the brokers, those who take the land and leak it to the Jews. He tracks them down, meaning it was Britain that reoccupied Palestine and brought 100,000 against a population of 400,000. Imagine that. The resistance was immense, and the people had nothing but simple weapons. They are very capable of liberating all of the countryside and liberating some cities also. What did I do before I came to the Arab armies? The moment of the Nakr was planned by the Jews. Yes, incidentally, years before the end of the mandate, they spent a long time gathering accurate intelligence, very much so, about every house, every village, and every street, and that the house has 3 young men, 2 young women, a father, and a mother. They have a quarter of a rifle, and imagine that, and there's a house here, in Shebin and Bent, and in Shebin, and they gathered all. They collected data and information, and devised their plan. Its name is Plan Dalt. Yes, and therefore made the decision to begin. What is the procedure? But after you use it in 2 villages, right? In a village, there was a wedding. They came and killed people, and they came to another village. They attacked them at night, killed them, and laid their hands on them. Take them like this, Mr. Muhammad, so they can see what's going on. It's possible. Yes, nothing happened. He told you. Since that's the case, let's go. Dad, let's start an ethnic cleansing operation. Yes, and we start committing all kinds of crimes. Okay, the Nakher file is also a big file, Your Excellency, and a huge file, and let me say things that are not usually said. Okay, firstly the plan was as follows. Britain, she said, guys, I'm leaving on May 15, 1948. I don't want to see any Arab army entering to liberate Palestine before May 15, 1948, and I will not allow it. And I will not allow it. Except, and I don't know what else, of course the world, the Arabs of that time. Let's remember, we must always remember that it was under occupation. The actual situation and the governments that ruled it were completely under the control of the British occupiers. But the logic of the nation-state was present. We are Egyptians and we are Egypt. We are Jordanians, officially Jordanian. Yes, we are Syrians, we have Syria. Officially, yes, but popularly, no. Good, okay. So officially, yes, for example, someone like Mohammed Mahmoud, if he were the prime minister, an Egyptian might ask, for example, what is your opinion on the year 38? A Palestinian issue, he tells you, I am the prime minister. Egypt is not the prime minister of Palestine, but the general public. No, the general public is different, and so is everyone else. We should know, for example, that many Egyptians are completely astonished when they learn that Egypt, it was one of the major advertising centers. Zionism, and Egypt had a Zionist lobby. It contained 3 Zionist newspapers and books. It was published in support of the establishment of a Jewish state and was the Egyptian government, as I told you. So she sends her representative to inaugurate the Hebrew University. Mustafa al-Mar's government was sending workers. Egyptians are striking because Palestinians are on strike so that you can stay. The machine is working, meaning the situation that was there. Ben-Gurion used to come to Egypt and meet with the lobby. The Jews, and they hold meetings in Egypt, and in Egypt, the Egyptian authorities were persecuting books. The one who supports Palestine and used to imprison people who, what does it mean to think about Palestine? Okay, placed in this way, it's good if no one is allowed to enter before May 15th. No one is allowed to enter, okay? So now, therefore, the second thing is, before the 15th, I'm leaving on May 15th. Okay, everything will happen before May 15th. I will confront her with all violence and force, whether from Arabs or Jews, it's all good, he'll come before May. April, we find Britain has left and handed over the country. For the Jews, okay, yeah, March, before May, Britain walked and surrendered. This country belongs to the Jews, therefore a takeover occurred, and he surrendered through a kind of deception to the great powers, especially in countries with large Arab populations, which they want to displace because it is on the land located within the Jewish state according to the decision. Partition means a massacre in Haifa, a massive massacre in Haifa, and if the 70,000 Arab block that, and all of this is before May 15th, exactly. It means that the Nakher movement is not the tit day, not on the 15th. It wasn't just one day, it was a beginning and started in villages. Displacement began, and people started killing each other, and work started from this type. Yes, that's correct. Consider it and the English order. The Israeli was saying, we English, oh, Israelis, when they entered this village, or it is the city, and it contains an arms depot for us. You go in, we go out. Yes, receive and live your life. Receive and live, and in what you bought, a clear purchase. Yes, it means the Zionist organization or the Jewish agency. We want this plane, for example. They had 24 planes at that time, the gangs, Zionism, which is the Haganah, I mean. This is level 1, level where there is delivery. He took possession of the deceitful item and left before the British forces were due to leave. The second level is that Britain oversaw the role. Every Arab country that empowers Israel all means. We said that Britain was the one who did it. The Arab League, all league meetings, the Arab world, regarding the Palestinian issue, was sitting. It included the English delegate Clayton. He sat there planning with them, each one deciding what to do. One of these Arab systems knew its role. So how did what happened happen? What happened? Three things, or let me summarize them as follows. Three things. The first thing is preventing Palestinians from defending their land. This is an Arab decision to ban Palestinians to defend their land completely, and that's why 1. The uniform of Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini and his army, the army of jihad, holy. Although he showed tremendous bravery, he always moves in an environment hostile to him from the Jews, and in an environment hostile to him from Arab policies. There's no money, no weapons, nothing. Therefore, Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini's message, the famous one, is the one written down, which is the one that the Secretary General of the Arab League said, I hold you responsible. Full responsibility for the fall of Palestine, and his internal discussions with the Arab leaders who, the volunteer army was led by Ismail Safwar and Tar al-Hashimi, tells them, you are traitors, and will write. History tells us that you sold Palestine because of Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini achieved great results. So why was he defeated? He was martyred because there was no ammunition. There's no ammunition. He went and asked for ammunition, but the ammunition was from Ismail Safar, and Tar al-Hashimi were dealing. What's with the rudeness? This statement. Why was he at our university at that time? Arabic. Yes, the Arab League was founded in 1945. Now in 48, they met and agreed that they would finance. Yes, give. They rejected the partition plan, and that's it for us. They rejected the partition plan, and the Arabs will not allow it. The loss of Palestine, and all this talk, but of course, this is just talk. Yes, they say with their tongues what is not in their hearts. Yet, of course, not all of them. I mean, for example, one like Abdul Rahman Azam was a patriotic man. The Secretary General was known to everyone. You know when. The best thing you can do is get a patriot, and he puts it on his foundation, and he has nothing in his hand. Powers. The leader's nationalistic image makes you trust him, and he's in the institution, and he doesn't know how to do anything. People don't know how to overcome it. They trust in this patriotic person. Yes, but now the Arabs have said, we will form an army. Volunteers. Anyone who wants to volunteer for Palestine, we will form a volunteer army and an army. These volunteers, they call them the Salvation Army, will be. It is the only legitimate authority. Entry is not permitted. Any other volunteer organization is not allowed entry. Other volunteer battalions are not allowed to join. The Army's volunteer forces are organized into battalions. What should someone who wants to go to? Individuals, or I won't say what weapon it is, what weapon and what money. You'll go to the Salvation Army. Okay, the Salvation Army. This is where his headquarters is in Damascus, the headquarters of his command. Ismail Safar and Tar al-Hashimi are both Iraqis, and Forzi al-Korki. This is the third. This is his book, Islam, Part 2. Despite its small size, it's important because it contains his arguments with. He asks him, what are these things you brought and took? Doctors, engineers, and respectable people said, go and do work. Who told him to take the one sitting on the corners and sitting in that thing that were not? They were interested in him. So he said to him, Your Excellency, General, or the team's leadership is the most important thing in the V. The fighter remains a man of conviction and faith. And, yes, Mustafa al-Sibai complained about the cold. He ran out of ammunition and went to Tar al-Hashimi. He goes to Ismail Safwat, saying, Uncle, we need ammunition. He tells him we don't have any, so he goes around behind his back and leaves. Syrian president, he tells them, I'm using my influence to help you with this. Uncle, give him a weapon and give him ammunition. Then He tells him, why, where did the Arab countries come from? Professor Muhammad's ammunition brings a third story. That's a third story, that most of the weapons, the ammunition found in these countries is a weapon. Old British and Old British ammunition. We had a degree of formal independence. At that time, Egypt was nominally independent. From 1922, Syria was nominally independent. From 1936, and a little more independence in 1946. Okay, you're going to Iraq too. Iraq in form. Independent since the 1920 revolution. Or Saudi Arabia. What is Saudi Arabia? It's far removed from this Saudi Arabia. It's possible to send it, but Saudi Arabia is far from that. The issue from the moment Abul Aziz al-Settled Sword founded the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Independent within British influence, but not under British influence. Direct means there are no British armies. It exists on earth, meaning, but what is known is that Saudi Arabia sent 500 soldiers from then the Yemenis. We're talking about small numbers, so no one else comes along and writes to me again. We Saudis participated and we Yemenis share with us, and I like to bring everything. Okay, the information is fine. Continue, sir. I'm sorry. If we're going to keep being considerate of people's feelings, all the people, at the level of ordinary people, were sacrificing. Palestine is in our hearts, but the political decision rests with us. The level of political decision-making could have been for the Israelis. Therefore, for example, Brigadier General Mahmoud Shab, the well-known Iraqi military commander, tells you, for example, the Arab armies entered in a strange way. Very Iraqis entered with armored vehicles. The area where they will fight is an area. Mountainous terrain means it doesn't need armor, unlike the army. The Egyptian entered without armor, even though the area where he will fight is a desert region, meaning the Egyptians needed shields. They entered with cannons. It had no ammunition, and the Iraqis entered with ammunition. They have no defenders in it. Yeah, some very strange things happened, but I'll tell you before I come to the Arab armies. The volunteers themselves are no longer an effective army because a small number, governed by Arab political decisions, he acts under. The policy ceiling is supposed to be that the volunteers are not. They have no connection to the United Nations. They say there is a truce, but nothing. Don't call it a truce. That's supposed to be volunteer talk. He never fought in an area belonging to unclear, a region that was included in the state's division decision. The Jews began fighting, but only in the Alawite areas. The Arabic language seemed to confirm the partition decision. He was confiscating weapons from the Palestinian residents. And of course, since we are talking about this, morality led to problems between him and Palestinians, theft, looting, and sometimes assault. They have symptoms, and when they withdraw and leave. The village is isolated, so the village is forced to migrate. Imam of the Zionist gangs. And the details, maybe people will come back for the book, or even refer to the sources the other eyewitnesses meant that it means, as Mustafa al-Sibai, Ahmad al-Shak and Kiri say, and others, that this Salvation Army was the means by which Arab regimes prepare raging. They decided they had no information about the land because the land has been occupied by Jews for 30 years. They changed it, they built roads, and they built colonies. And they have factories, and none of those countries have them. Information about this land. Mahmoud al-Sabarg says, when I asked the Egyptian army commander for a map for the area of operations, he brought me a map from 30 years ago. That is, before there was English colonialism. There is no unified plan. Commander-in-chief, the English commander of these Arab forces, Glub Pasha, because he was the general commander of the armies. The Arabic language was under Jordanian leadership, and the Jordanian army was under British command, and the order of entry of King Abdullah of Jordan in this war was decided at a meeting in February. 48, which is the famous meeting of Torfik Abu al-Hudar was the prime minister at the time, and Glub Pasha with Bevan is the British Foreign Secretary. Of course, King Abdullah agreed to the decision. The division was between him and the Jewish leadership. Relationships, and this is information published in more than one source. This statement was published by Abdullah al-Tarli in Memoirs and publication of Tahir al-Hashimi in Memoirs and his publication Mare's Skin was exposed in her memoirs. Israelis, in the official narrative of the war 48, so it was Glub Pasha's role and publication himself in his memoirs. He was the commander of the Jordanian army. The role of the Jordanian army is to uphold the decision. The division isn't just that, it's also a ladder of villages. Arabism was not part of the partition plan. For the Israelis, this handover is the most dangerous thing in my city. Lod and Ramler. When you see them on the map, there are two connections between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It means whoever is holding the lead and the sand will be in a throat. The Jewish state, these two cities, took place, handing them over. Or, of course, when you read this novel at Glub Pasha in his memoirs and then you read it at Abd Allah al-Tarli in his memoirs reveals the extent of the betrayal, which Glub Pasha betrayed at that time, so you know. Imagine that the commander-in-chief of the Arab armies was English. He entered on the basis that he was proving the partition decision, not on the basis that he is fighting the establishment of the state, Judaism. Yet, and peace be upon our cities, the Egyptian army, also Egyptian from the south, entered, breaking through to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv without any resistance means falling into a trap that a child wouldn't fall into. The little one who entered directly, they opened for him. When he arrived on the road, they surrounded him and rose up against him. Jewish settlements and centers in its south. So he remained trapped, unable to return, and of course, unable to. Progress is made, but ultimately, the leadership armies are ultimately tied to political decisions. Withdrawal advance. According to the UN truce, I meant when reading the diaries of the 1948 war makes you feel like you're in a state of from dark comedy, or a case of dark comedy. Truly, it means something unbelievable, and look, despite all that, with all that, the first stage, which is before the first truce was in the Arabs' favor, with all the problems I'm telling you about. It means they were achieving victory and advancing. They were achieving victory, they were advancing. Then comes the truce, and the Arab armies stop fighting. The Zionist gangs catch their breath and begin. The second stage. This second stage has begun. The Arab armies are retreating and collapsing. Therefore, the big problem that many people don't notice. Some people believe the partition decision led to the Israelis. 55% of the land was taken by Israelis after the war, and they have 78% of the land. Odd. It means that the Arab armies were fighting with the Israelis. I wish we had left it to the volunteers. They'll get rid of her. That means, basically, that's what the Palestinians wanted. They wanted to, and after the war ended, this is where things started to appear. The dangerous interventions of the Egyptians have led to the takeover of the Gaza Strip. The partition decision is supposed to say now, what does he mean by a Jewish state next to a state, Palestinian or Arab? The Arabs didn't accept it. They accepted it. They wanted a Jewish state, but they weren't satisfied with that state. The Egyptians entered and took For example, volunteers from the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, they were arrested and imprisoned. Glub Pasha mentions in his memoirs how he mobilized all Jordanian military and security efforts in preventing the infiltration of Jordanians or Palestinians who they were displaced, meaning they were returning to their places once again. In a nice report published by the University Office, Arab states in New York discuss violations Israeli within the Israeli ceasefire limits. They break The Arab states are holding the Palestinians hands. Many Arabs agree that they should respond to her or they implement it. The report details how each government, the Arab League, is pursuing those who violate the ceasefire, the fire, and those who imprisoned, and those who tortured, and those kept them away, and those who banished them, and so on. Okay, I have two questions, Mr. Mohammed, before let's go to 67. Which Arab armies are they? What are they not? Now we have countries that are gaining independence. Even if only nominally, it means yes. The original logic is no longer the logic of the state. Qatari, correct? So what's it to me? Why should I send an army? I'll defend myself, give myself a headache, and create a League of Nations. Arabic and all that talk, I've got it now. Independence, I'll take care of what I have, and peace be upon you. What do I care about Palestine? Palestine is Palestine, it has people, they call themselves Palestinians, and they're going to liberate it. So what was the motive that made people go? Is the fighting about the partition resolution, which is 181. What made people leave? It's not Palestine. Our followers will be occupied and all that talk. And for the massacres committed by the Jews in the Palestinians stirred and inflamed the emotions of these armies. And she wanted to go and liberate this land. The first question. The second question will tell us. 1. My brother, I swear to God, shame on you for this. The program is that you say, my brother, these are the countries. All of them are functional states, and they are all states. She was performing in plays from day one. The countries did not offer anything, did not sacrifice anything, and did not provide anything for Palestine. It's a shame. We've given so much. Professors from all countries have submitted their support for the cause. Palestinian. From the very first moment, the proof is that it was the army. The Jordanian reached Jerusalem and achieved unprecedented victories. It's normal, even though the plan was modified twice. The third one, which was approved by Glub Pasha, is the one that the conversation turned to her even though she was disheveled. And Makrabarter means it was approved a day before its implementation. Despite that, as you mentioned, I achieved a victory. It's too much, my brother, so stop telling us that we didn't stand with Palestine. We didn't stand with Palestine. We sold Palestine like this from the beginning, that's it. Honestly, this talk is boring and pointless, so let's drop it. What do you think? Let's move on to the first question. Since we have nation states, so what's the motivation for me to intervene and defend Palestine? Look, firstly, massacres were taking place in Palestine, and the massacres and tragedies of 1948, yet they did not. Which of these countries intervenes to defend Palestinians? But rather she was persecuting those who tried. Defending Palestine means, for example, one of ours in Egypt printed a book called Fire and Destruction in Palestine is printing it without the knowledge of the authorities, and what? He doesn't keep it under his name and distributes it secretly, and as soon as he clings to power, he is imprisoned, and the Palestinians, they were treated as terrorists in Egypt. Abd al-Qadir al-Husseini was originally exiled from Egypt. Get out of Egypt, and some people, some Palestinians, they imprisoned a newspaper called Al-Shura, the Consultative Assembly. The Palestinian closed. So firstly, what made them tear it out? Or this means that Arab nationalism will emerge in them, and they will think they entered the armies. The popular movement was not about to let this opportunity slip away. Palestine is this easy, the popular wave. This is not thinking we should stand against it and suppress it. A smart politician wouldn't do that. Okay, so let me give you a clearer picture. During the Arab, how can he die of pride and say, "Oh, peace of Palestine"? This Palestine is the beauty of the eye and the jewel in the crown. We will form an army of volunteers, and we will enter with our official armies, then he will manage the matter, so that it is the volunteer army and the official armies. It leads to the same result but without the collision. With whom, with this popular movement, do you want to volunteer and fight? Come on, we've formed a volunteer army. I will organize training camps for you at Cairo University and put your trust in God, and then He will manage. This army's march ended the war, put them all in my possession. This is literally what happened in the detention centers. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Those who went to jihad, they returned to the detention centers. Okay, this is documented and written, meaning, yes, this is very famous. Books are written about it. Hey, yes, okay. Good. For example, you know our situation before. For 40 years, wasn't there a struggle among the people? Afghanistan, or right, Afghanistan, and your atheist communist brothers. After they went to Afghanistan, they got the issues of those returning from Afghanistan are pointless. Sir, the situation was closer to her than Syria. The beginnings, the official declared position of the countries. The Arab Bashar is a criminal and I don't know what else, and he's collecting. Donations were collected, and in the end, the people who collected them were judged. Donations for Syria. So that's what happens. The second question is the idea that these governments are not functional governments, national governments, and governments that sacrificed for the sake of Palestine. I want to tell you that during the 1948 war, certain situations occurred. Supervisor and real championships, but with one difference: those who did all this are those who rebelled against official decisions. Those who rebelled against the official decisions are those who were put in detention centers are the ones. They were imprisoned, even though they were the ones who killed, but then the regime is trading with them, knowing you're killing them. The slain man walks in his funeral procession, and the merchant is with what he is. Currency. Natural. You will find people from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Iraq, from Egypt, from Syria, and from Lebanon. All those, they achieved something. They are the ones who came after that, tried, exiled, and expelled. But the state prefers to exploit their achievements, for which they were judged and punished. Yes, okay, good. So, the Nakba of 48 ended, and Israel became the known boundaries, which are the drawn boundaries now on the maps, which are called borders for June 7th, which is around May 15th, 1948, which is the boundaries drawn now are boundaries of 15, not 15, May border. The end of December, the year 48. Is the same as around for June 67, which is now the one all the effort wants to go back to, which is the West Bank and Gaza. Exactly. A new term called the Palestinian refugee is correct. And that's how it started happening all over the world, and that's how the story began. Long, painful, strange, and strange. Its effects are still felt today, and we cannot, meaning they cannot strive. The time, yes, but right now I feel like we're going through a rough patch. Quickly, I mean, okay, 67, but I can tell you that all the traitors who caused the 1948 war quickly, they were punished. King Farouk of Egypt was overthrown in a military coup. Okay, in Jordan, King Abdullah was assassinated. Al-Aqsa Mosque. All of this was caused by Palestine. Of course, Palestine is part of, let's say, Palestine. Main reason, a primary reason, combined with another reason, will lead to. I will come to him in a little while, but for example, even in Iraq, Nuri al-Said and his government, and these people were also killed after the coup. The military man who was in 1958. This combined with what? Sheikh Murad, in that the Americans and the Soviet Union wanted to inherit it. Old colonies, therefore, there are Americans landing on the ground and on. These are people who want to be free and have immense resentment towards what? It happened in Palestine. This land has many discontented people, and the actors, therefore, a number of movements occurred. Revolutions and military coups, which in its origins finds popular approval. Hafez al-Assad completely controlled him. So I meant to tell you, the political arena and the political map have changed. A major change after 48, with a tremendous impact from the performance of these governments in the issue Palestine, and also the presence of this colonialism. The new one who wants to inherit the old colonialism, or the people who inherited the old colonialism. There are still countries that have raised the banner of Arab nationalism. What are you going into now? Your political situation is one of a population dissatisfied with the government. The above is part of the advertising that should. It promotes it, spreads it, broadcasts it, and disseminates it. Arab unity and the liberation of Palestine, that's where we got involved. This era could be called the Nasser era. You could call it the Nasser era because Nasser, he was the most prominent Arab leader without diminishing his importance. Others, but Egypt, with its accumulated wealth and the first media outlet was radio, of course. An old press exists in Egypt, in addition to the population. Thus, in addition to the proximity to Palestine, my intention is to say, there was only one voice at that time, and that was the voice of Ab Nasser. Many of the other voices were in agreement with the voice al-Nasser. That means you'll definitely find the one from Jordan. You'll find the one from Jordan. Saudi Arabia was against Nasser, but they didn't have the same spirit. What capabilities make them competitive with their voice? That's why problems occur. For example, in Yemen, Saudi Arabia remains opposed to Nasser. Problems in Jordan, where Hussein remains against Abdel Nasser. But in the end, the leader you meet, he holds the hearts of people from the rebellious Gulf too. Who is the capable ocean? He is Abdel Nasser, and Abdel Nasser, as Miles Copeland says, and as he's talking, meaning other Americans must, the stage remains erected. Okay, or therefore, the prevailing discourse at that time was, what time is it? We will throw Israel into the sea, liberating Palestine and all that nonsense. It's all just talk, but in reality, none of this goes in place of execution absolutely, or even in the books of Haeckel, who is a philosopher in Nasserism, and Rafik Abdel Nasser and his spokesman, clear statements that Nasser did not think about. He is considering attacking Israel. In fact, Nasser considered establishing peace with Israel if it weren't for the assassination of King Abdullah. Jordan, he says that he has a saying that was transmitted from him by Haeckel, who transmitted it. Golder Meir, he says that if Ben Gurion went, he would come and visit me. In Cairo, he will return to his people as a hero, but if I visited him in Tel Aviv, I will return to my people to face assassination, or therefore, and of course, reducing military spending is important. We live a period of time from the verse, a period of Arab nationalist sentiment. But Arab nationalism, secularism, what kind of secularism is this? Give me a holiday. The Arabs will make my body a nation and carry it according to their religion. Bar Ibrahim Salam Allah Kafir you had between us, and welcome to my hell afterwards. O Lord, I believe in the resurrection as a Lord without partner, and in Arabism, Dina has no equal. In this way, therefore, at that time Islam was persecuted. It dries up and withers in these regions. This period, the 50s and 60s, was a very, very difficult period, or communism is entrenched. Moral decay is widespread. Yes, even clothes and garments. My reaction was, I'm looking at the pictures. Oh my God, what is this? Yes, correct. Oh, okay, that's what you're saying, Mr. Mohammed. What does this have to do with 1967? How will it lead us to, look, of course, we're currently in a moment, and we are talking about the Palestinian issue. We're not talking about the rest of the issues while we're talking. We will find in it the Palestinian issue. This topic has three aspects, or three effects, regarding the Palestinian issue, that's all. The first effect is that, here it is, the Arab peoples and nations have shaken off the dust. Colonialism and the dust of reactionary governments are preparing now for Arab unity and the liberation. In it, the Arab nation will eliminate Israelis. Okay, so this establishes the general case. Arab nationalism and secularism, and also secularism, therefore, Islamists have almost disappeared during this period. Islamists among prisoners, a fugitive and a scalpel, enough. However, there are slogans of Arab unity, but no action at the level of Arab unity. What do you mean by the attempts at unity that took place? For example, Egypt and Sudan were once one country. Egyptian politics led to Egypt's separation from Sudan. Taib Shukri al-Quwatli in Syria came. He sent a message to Nasser in Egypt and offered him unity. It's a limit, and you could say it's a campaign against her. The United Arab Republic, which is Egypt and Syria, were there for 3 years. Then it happened, a military coup in Syria, and Abd surrendered to it. Nasser didn't even think about defending unity. Taib Nasser is going to fight in Yemen, and that's where it happened. The problems between him and Saudi Arabia. Okay, therefore, you were hearing one Arabic word, one Arab woman, but despite that, there is no unity. A car is moving on the ground, I hear resistance. The Zionists and the expulsion of the Zionist gangs, but Egyptian security services in Gaza and the agencies, Jordanian security forces in the West Bank are operational. It hunts down and imprisons resistance fighters in West Bank prisons and in Gaza prisons. Oh God. Okay, by the way, it's more precious than the most precious and valuable. What the Israelis obtained in 1967 archives. The two security agencies, when they took Gaza and the West Bank, she found information whose names are on the lists, with the people who resist, and the people who know them, and the people who organized them, and the people who paid them money, and the people who they thought of resisting. Yeah, Israel inherited the security efforts of the two regimes, Egyptian and Jordanian. We're still in the early 60s, aren't we? Yes, I mean, say the 50s, 60s and 60s, for details, now it's fine. The second thing is that we now have, yes, we have a lot of fog and an atmosphere saturated with talk regarding the confusion of Palestine. The second thing is Nasser. It was media propaganda or advertising. The media coverage was so massive that he boasts that Egypt has come close to conquering space. Egypt will launch a satellite using the Al-Zafir rocket. Al-Nasser and Al-Kahir are missiles with a range of, I don't know how many missiles were used in the Nakba of 48. Someone who lived in the 1948 era can imagine. He might imagine it happening, yes, but he rules it out, yes, but he imagines it's happening because the country is occupied, in English, and because there is a preface, and in the preface, Jewish immigration, but only those who lived through the events of 67. He never imagined it would happen, because our countries are independent, our armies are great, we have developed powerful weapons, and we are on the verge of unification, Arab, and we made joint defense agreements. For someone who is 67 years old, this does not occur to him. It is possible for Israel, or you can do something like the Nakba of 67, of course. The term choose or structure for mitigation is itself. He admits it, meaning he says, I am responsible for. The word setback was used because it was a top priority. We are overcoming the effects of the aggression, but that's all. The truth is it's a disaster worse than the first one. Why? This is a crucial correction. The 1967 disaster is over. Why? Because firstly, Israel invaded on that day. One of 3 Arab countries, odd, 3 Arab countries, some of them are deserts, or rather, the Sinai region, which is actually double the size of all of Palestine, meaning Israel, swallowed a bite that is 3 times larger than its size. You are imagining, or a famous expression says, this is the first victory of its type since the collapse of the Byzantine Empire before the armies of Khalid ibn al-Walid, which means there is no such thing as a country that has managed to expand announcement of the closure of the Straits of Turin to the salt trade. How is the Israeli situation to understand? Maybe the youth put it on the map, or in the 48 Israel knew how to take the village of al-Rashash, which Eilat is now called Der, an Egyptian village called Eiler, at the head of the Gulf of Aqaba, and this is what the Egyptians left for her, meaning until now. Egyptian politics doesn't demand it. Take it from the 48 the village of Eilat, which is at the head of the bay. This obstacle is the only Israeli crossing point. To the Red Sea you go and enter a bay, Kharbar, and from the Gulf of Aqaba to the sea. Red is their bad luck and our good luck, meaning, on the contrary, as you can see, this is the Gulf of Aqaba. It ends at two islands, namely Turin and Sanafir, two Egyptian islands, so you're not even Israeli. I took this village which is at the head of a bay. Kharbar cannot be crossed except with the permission of the two islands, Locht, Gulf, Locks, or okay, so how did Israel get its rights? The navigation channel that Nasser is now closing. She took it during the 1956 aggression. This is a defeat we read about for the Egyptian army, but the Egyptian marketed it to people as a victory. Enormous. Egyptians still remember, by the way. They won in 56, while he was the one who got it. It is the English and the French who refused to accept that they are relinquishing their positions and influence in the East, Middle East for Americans. Beware the Israelis if they launch an attack at the Suez Canal. Its name remains the threatened canal. Tijaush remains Britain and France because the canal is threatened by the passage. The global maritime system is linked to our interests. Okay, that part was risky. For the Israelis impose, shake, the group, Egyptians are vigilant and attentive. We are basically, Israel at that time, which was 56, was weaker. As an army, we are embarking on an adventure with the army. The Egyptian in this vast land, if we are. Actually, in 48 we only won by controlling. The decision of the armies now is that when we enter, it will be a problem. The Israelis took a risk based on a lapse in judgment. The Egyptian regime took a risk and entered Sinai and left up to the channel based on the assumption that they will do all this before. The Egyptians felt this, and that's what happened when the English arrived. And the French, of course, were threatening the Americans. And the Soviets, who want to inherit colonialism, the old one. This is what they intervened with their weight to expel the English and French. The Israelis returned to their places because we said that the coup that took place in Egypt was his plan was American, namely Nasser's coup. Therefore, in exchange for its withdrawal, Israel received the right to freedom, navigation in the Gulf of Aqaba. The Egyptians themselves, Kanaush, knew that Israel had taken this right. Among the gains that the Israelis took in 56 means that an international police force is deployed, i.e. So, peacekeeping forces between the Egyptians and the Israelis provided protection for the Israelis. And certainly, the Egyptians will not be able to tell what they are. They are considering attacking the Israelis unless form the international police forces. This, or in 1967, Nasser did two things that are considered. Those two things are what they did. They started the war. They announced the closure of the air strait in front of the Israeli navigation. He warned the international police forces to evacuate. He said, please, go ahead and leave. These two steps are tantamount to a declaration of war. The international police officer said to him, okay, sure, let's go. Hey everyone, we're leaving. From the mysteries, even to this day, this is a slave. Why is Nasser acting like this? It means Abdel Nasser started. He fought the war as if he were prepared for it, then faced it as if he hadn't. He heard of it, but it never crossed his mind. Oh my God. One of the mysteries so far is why he did it that way. Some people say he did that because he wanted to. He was bargaining, meaning he was bargaining as soon as he did it. These two movements will bring in international mediators. What do you want? So, you want money, for example. Israel, "Okay, I want beater." When he met them, they said to him, "Okay, fine. We're walking." He didn't know what to do and what does that mean? They were picking them up, and when you see the scene of the Israeli withdrawal, the tanks were moving along the road, lying on the two sides are similar to a scene of troop withdrawal. The Iraqi woman from Kuwait in the 90s, when she entered US forces, it was a defeat. It means strange, and shocking. Of course, it's called the Six-Day War, but I actually finished in the first 6 hours, meaning, practically speaking, it means the rest was an attempt to control the West Bank and Jerusalem, meaning Jerusalem, for example. This means that Al-Aqsa Mosque has been occupied, or no one around him died, or because the Jordanian forces also withdrew from its locations. The 67th involved only the Egyptian army. No, what is 67? It doesn't mean that anyone is considered a partner in it. 67, we were beaten and we stayed silent. All of us, yes, even the Golan Heights, meaning the Golan Heights is high and plateau-like. It's absolutely terrible. It's unacceptable. I mean, it's unacceptable for anyone. It's occupied by a soldier watching from above. Yes, however, Israel occupied it very smoothly and with great ease. 3 and simple. So, it means a strange war. And the strange thing is that the Arab armies collapsed. And then you can say that what came before 1967 is not the same after that. Yes, 67 was a massive blow to the core of consciousness, nationalism, Arab consciousness, and Islamic consciousness. This means, of course, that it is followed by a severe wave and its consequences, a wave of disbelief in Arabs and Arabism, and of course, a wave. Disbelief in Nasseria means that it is cracked, the idol of Nasser, which you could say, idol of the masses. Oh God, at that time, oh my God, nobody could. Moreover, all these disasters were happening on the ground, while Egyptian radio has achieved, our forces advanced. I don't know what. We shot down the Cam 70 and Cam 80 aircraft, and we are on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. I mean, I'm telling you, the people, the flags raised her to the sky, and then Nasser's speech that acknowledges they admit defeat on the evening of June 9th. That means after about 4 days, let people fall from the sky to the earth to bottom of the abyss, or it was a huge disaster, and in the end, Nasser. What actually happened was what is called a war of attrition. And if it means, I don't want to appear to be downplaying the efforts. People's efforts, I mean the efforts of armies and soldiers, but ultimately, the political situation is that Nasser died while agreeing to the Rogers Initiative. The U.S. Secretary of State was to stop the firing. The fire is only now coming for the Palestinians. I want to tell you something. They suffered psychological trauma. They were enormous and benefited from other things they were exposed to the immense psychological shock of having their entire homeland occupied. They benefited from the fact that the road between the borders had opened. Old and new means the people who occupied. In 1948 they were able to visit their relatives who they were displaced in the West Bank or in Gaza, meaning this world. They opened up a little and also learned a historical lesson. If they didn't, of course, mean they abandoned 300,000, but in the elite abandoned 800,000 because they were in the elite. They thought themselves, they will return tomorrow or the day after. After the Josh, Arabic will get rid of them. But what did they see after 67? If there are no armies left, no one will finish them off. So hold on their land at that time. The catastrophe was a catastrophe. The second is the 1967 catastrophe, which means we can say the Palestinian cause has suffered a complete loss. Israel has established itself as a regional power, meaning after Israel had been a matter of doubt and mere Zionist gangs have now made Israel a power, a regional force capable of sweeping through 3 Arab countries in one day, or including the largest and most populous Arab state. Our population is Egypt. Therefore, Israel emerged from this war as regional power. All political efforts since that time, and even today, we are now almost 60. His year is an attempt to return to the borders of June 4, 1967. And with great objectivity people will go back and read this. I hope they read this in the sources. The basics, don't read propaganda sources. What happened in 73? What happened in 73 wars? Sadat launched a movement to initiate the paths peace and normalization Sadat used to tell his leaders. This was written by Mohammad Forzi, who was the Minister of War, wrote it in a book called War, October Lessons and Insights. Sadat wanted to say, you just have to free up 10 centimeters east for me. Suez Canal. It is in the Americans' interest for Israel to transform to a natural state in the region because of its survival as an aggressor and occupying state, and all those around it. It means they are forced to wage war against her, even if it means him. It harms her in the long run, even if she is strong. You know, no one stays tense their whole life. It means no one stays stretched and tense all the time. His age must remain normal. Therefore, this situation is not a good situation. So let's delve into the issue of normalization. Sadat wanted a war of movement. Therefore, the October Plan was devised, and this is what he said. Sard Eldin El-Shazli and they said, of course, memoirs. The October War was led by Sard Eldin El-Shazli, Abel Albani Al-Jamzi, Abel Munim Waisel, and Abel al-Munim Karlil, who led the Second Army. The third one is all published, of course, not our book. Dr. Gamal's Military Battles, Jamal Hamid, who was originally a member of the Council, Revolution Management. The plan that Sard Eldin El-Shazli put in place is, if we manage to liberate 10 to 15 kilos east of the canal, well, that doesn't mean you'll be able to liberate Sinai. Yes, I won't be able to, but I'll be there somewhere. The Israeli cannot settle there. The Israeli knew how to hide after 67. He knew he was hiding near the Suez Canal, a water barrier separating it from the rest of the country. What did he do? A waterproofing agent worked afterwards. An earthen berm was then created as a military defense line. It is the Bar-Lev line, and that's it. No one will be able to cross except, and I see. Every war plan is based on surprising the enemy by crossing. These obstacles are part of the entire war plan, hence the word. This is a crossing in Egyptian memory, or which is the miracle of the crossing, and you could really say, it's a military miracle. I mean the Egyptian army. When he actually did it, he performed a military miracle. Canal builder, earthwork builder, and defensive line builder. Military, okay, what should he do? He is Sard al-Shazli. He devised this plan. He wanted to take action. 10-15 kilos, so that it can bring in defense missiles. The Air Force remains at the canal and retains its missile capability. Air defenses provide cover for the forces present. East of the canal, aircraft cannot. The Israelis should strike it. And that's it. We're just sitting here. Our country, the Israeli won't find a line to hide behind, and I'm betting on it. In Sinai, he will be forced to withdraw because he is not capable of a long military war. It was built on this, the October War plan drawn up by Sard el-Shazli. Enough. Yes, due to circumstances, Sadat insisted on developing the problems and details of the development. The attack means the advance of the forces towards the military base. They say the troops shouldn't advance because if she advanced and went outside the air defense umbrella, he was exposed to Israeli air strikes. Sadat, the first thing they did was implement it. The Egyptian forces advanced and lost. 250 tanks out of 400 are all he has. The Egyptian army, and that is why this day was called the massacre. Tanks, or okay, so when forces went and advanced and were attacked, what happened? The gap was exploited by Sharon's team. The Israeli army then turned it around from the Kedar area, narrow passageway area, narrow straits area. The diffuser turned with her, and she entered the part. African from Egypt, the Third Army besieged the section. The army division located in the southern part of Sinai. The Third Field Army was besieged, and so the curtain fell, and America entered and imposed its will. A ceasefire was declared, and Sadat said, "I can't. I am fighting America, and 99% of the cards are in my hand. America, because Israel has no connection with Cairo. Something if they penetrated into Cairo, but when America intervened and imposed a ceasefire, the fire and the Third Army are besieged, so you can't say. This is a victory purely for the Egyptians, of course. You read this kind of talk in serious books, and you read it in the memoirs of the leaders of the October War, but the propaganda, the Egyptian woman portrayed it as a complete victory. Hence, the American pressure, of course, to instigate war. Is this American pressure? Sadat was, of course, ready for the peace process. What impact will this peace issue have on the case? Palestinian. He is the older brother, the one we have always been attached to, and who has always told us that we will enter and liberate Palestine, and he always told us it is a national and Arab issue. Now he's become a patriotic man, and he went and told us, yes, I liberated my country, and you liberate yours. So he was removed from the battle. Yes, Egypt, which represents a quarter of the Arab world, was excluded from the battle. This means not removing one country out of 22 from the battle. Naturally, a quarter of the force was removed from the battle, of course, yes. So this is the state of peace, Sheikh Murad. A harsh blow, strong and decisive once again. Even Sadat abandoned Gaza, because Gaza is theirs. The Egyptian army was the one that originally handed it over. In 1967, the Israelis took possession of it from the army. The Egyptian and Gaza, this is originally the peace that Egypt has ruled it since 1948, and it refused to be subordinate for Palestinians, and soon the same thing will be repeated on the West Bank. Those who were in Gaza will also be abandoned by Jordan, the West Bank, and they say it belongs to the Palestinians. After the slogan was "the two banks are one body." This unity is sacred. The unity of the two banks is sacred. Okay, so what now, sir? We've reached the point where Kissinger was the one who supported Golda Meir when, by three and by this war, and by no means by this war, it is war, because, to my knowledge, when he joined the army, the Egyptian, and crossed the canal, Calmaun fainted. She means she told you, that's it, the army is coming. He is crushing us now. It is a threatening moment. Then she called Kissinger and said, please, I received some aid, but it was a little delayed. The American planes finally arrived. It was undoubtedly a shock. It was huge for the Israelis, but it wasn't. The Israelis might give up Sinai, and they enter into the Israeli peace zone. What area? Why would I give up something I'm capable of? Keep it. Whoever wants peace should come and make peace with me in this state. This matter is fine. It did not sit well with the Americans. The Americans want a normal situation, because Sadat couldn't have entered into the operation peace without achieving a symbolic victory. And that's the point. What he said. Moshe Sasson, who is the second ambassador. Israel has a memoir called 7 Years in the Land of the Egyptians. He says, I'm talking to Kamal Hassan Ali, who was the prime minister. It was not possible to enter into peace without. This is a war in which the Egyptian appears to be victorious. Okay, and that's the same thing he said. What's his opinion? Professor Mohammed, when the 1967 war ended, what was Israel like? With her, Sinai and Gaza were with her, and the bank became part of it, and the Golan Heights with it, Yes, it was a massive expansion, So when we go to the Peace and Normalization March, and the Peace Treaty and the year 79, so you're talking about the Palestinians seeing, or they realized then that they have no recourse but themselves. Ahmed Matar had a very nice poem. Of course, the Arabs are the remaining group from. The Arabs were still not satisfied with Sadat, but Sadat as president of Egypt, well, he thinks he's one of the Arabs, so he told you to go to hell. Okay, so what was Ahmed Matter saying? The bull fled from. The bull's pen means this old man, Fartharet. The calves in the pen are crying over the escape of the march leader, and as a result, a session and a conference were formed, and he said, I have. One disbelievers said, to hell, while another said, give him a chance. Finally, perhaps he will return to the fold. A year later, a remarkable incident occurred. A new move by the Palestinian resistance. This Islamic shift, of course, should have. We say, but we took the conflict between nations as resistance. This Palestinian woman was also subjected to stages, the Palestinian resistance that began after 1948. Her dilemmas were the most severe and extreme. These are the Arab systems, specifically the two systems. The Egyptian and the Jordanian are completely in agreement, so this resistance, it practically died out in 1956, meaning there were operations and such. True, for example, within 7 years in some statistics show that from the year 1949 to the year 1956, these resistors have been around for years, even though they're scattered. It killed 1,200 Israelis but subsided in the year 56. After that, the Jordanians tightened their grip on the West Bank, and the Egyptians are completely on Gaza. In 1957, the Fatah movement was founded. FIN was founded in Kuwait, and its origins are refugees. Those who I mean, they left and settled in countries, the Gulf, because the Gulf states have begun to remain. They have an oil boom and don't have many people. The Palestinians remained a people displaced from their land, and so they were. A type of verse from the meeting between the Palestinians. He found an opportunity in the Gulf countries, and the Gulf citizens found it. They possess skills that were not present in their previous group. In short, Kuwait was one of the countries with the most a space for movement, and it contains a number of Palestinians. The Fatah movement was formed there in 1957, but the Fatah movement had a strange beginning. Most of those who founded the Fatah movement were Islamists. They were members of the Muslim Brotherhood, so why? The Muslim Brotherhood itself, that's what. Why did Fatah become a secular movement? Because the Islamists at that time were under Nasserite hell. They were defeated on a national level within their own countries. Their homelands were being subjected to extermination and annihilation, and they didn't have reflections on the Palestinian resistance. That means at that time the Islamists were thinking as follows: the Palestinians themselves are unable to resist the Israelis, therefore it is necessary to establish the Islamic State that is fighting him. The Arab nationalist Israelis had the same. The idea is that the Palestinians also can't. If they are alone, then the Arab state must be established. Arab unity, which is responsible for the establishment of Israel. Therefore, you would find the Palestinians scattered even in the Arab parties in Syria and Jordan, in Lebanon and elsewhere. The Islamists remained. They don't have Islamist parties. All their work is secret because they are under pressure under Nasser's hell, and after a while they will have a Syrian hell, and after a while it will be they have an Iraqi hell. In this case, the Islamists decided that they resist so that they are not subjected to all this oppression. Or, okay, so whoever wants to resist has to be present in. It means the people who want to resist are the ones. They formed a Fatah movement. But what about us? We want to pay the price for being Islamists. So they're not Islamists, you know. Because if we say Islamists, what will happen in the world? It means we'll be beaten by the Israelis. And among the Arab regimes, the Fatah movement was founded. The year 1957, but its first military operations were December 1964 or January 1965, depending on the details, among historians. And this is where it began during the 60s. You could say the time. I mean resistance at 65 and above. You could say the 1960s 1965s and 1970s were a different era of resistance. Islamic. It's true they started as Islamists, and Khalil al-Wazir and Abu al-Lutf al-Kadhimi and others were brothers. They were Muslims but remained secular with the Fatah movement. This is the era of non-Islamic resistance. It revived the Palestinian situation, but even this, the resistance suffered a very major setback due to two things. The first is that the Arab countries, she wanted to invest it for her own benefit, and there remained chapters to be written, from the attempt of Nasser and the Iraqis, and the Syrians.
المقاومة غير الإسلامية تغيض وتذول وتنتهي.
Non-Islamic resistance is enraged, humiliated, and ends, especially since she entered into two huge confrontations with two Arab regimes. Entered the year 1970 in confrontation with the Jordanian regime was in its darkest hour of 1982. Israel and Lebanon, from the south until it reached Beirut, was one of the conditions or one of the outcomes. The battles mean that the PLO will withdraw, and its fighters from Lebanon dispersed throughout the land, and its leadership went to Tunisia. I'm talking to you at 82. Look, 79 and 82, that's the hit. The judge then began to open up the space inside. Palestine belongs to the next generation of these Islamists. This movement is the Green Movement and Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Then came the moment of the first uprising in 1952, December 1987, which became known as the Stone Uprising. Of course, there are many chapters that need to be covered. Okay, yes, we lit it ourselves. According to, yes, the Palestinian anthem means many chapters need to be told in this, the uprising. But you could say this is the first time it remained, meaning from after 48, in which the Palestinians, an uprising that seems astonishing, amazing, and unexpected. It has no support, no advocate, no list within. Palestine has no external funding from any country. The situation in the Arab world seems to have settled down, either towards peace or peace. Barred or peace does not mean public peace or peace secretly. This uprising was a significant turning point in the course of events. The history of resistance and the revival of the idea of Palestine once again. Another idea and the issue of Al-Aqsa Mosque once again. Of course, it started with a famous hit-and-run incident when a settler ran over a group of Palestinian workers. Then, within the womb of this uprising, this was formed. The movements that are still alive, which are the Green Movement and the Islamic Jihad movement. And here, we'll get there, of course. I'll keep it brief. And please excuse us here. Our height is strong, meaning yes. But what happened here? For the first time, Israelis and society allow it. The international community should form a Palestinian leadership. They were surprised that this was a people who had no. The leadership has reached a stage of liquidity where we don't know how to confront him. Come on, everyone, let's give him a lead so we can find out. We'll hold on to it, you know. Okay, so who's suitable? Who should we bring in an hour if he is present on the table is one, like Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat. When did the founder of the Fatah movement establish it? Year 57. It means we are now more than 30 years old. And Arafat. What were the circumstances surrounding the establishment of the movement by Tayyip Arafat? You mean if you get inside Arafat's head you'll find 57. When he founded it, he hoped it would remain part of resistance. He suffered such setbacks that he had 57 first operations. In 1965, his affair was suppressed, and in 1967 it happened. It experienced splits in the 70s, and it emerged and appeared. Leftist movements and other movements, then expulsion from Jordan, then he was expelled from Beirut, and now he is in Tunisia. Has nothing left to offer. It means when you look at Arafat at that moment, in that moment, which is 92, 91, and 92, is a human moment. Defeated, he emerged from his life of struggle without any results. Absolutely. Okay, and he'll announce the Palestinian state in international politics allows for conferences to be held only once, and its contradictions between the Americans and the Soviets. He goes to the United Nations and gives a speech that cannot be rejected. The olive branch is from my hand, Tamim. Bring it here, Uncle Yasser Arafat, in order to. So what should we do now? We are repeating the situation of the old days. The English and French occupation is present in our country is one where someone controls the people, and occupying the hold of power means that there is an authority holding power. The people are under occupation, holding the verse mask of authority, especially since he enjoyed popular support. Almost. He is. We started with the issue of the Oslo Accords and the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinians and we entered into the Gaza-Jericho Agreement, which is her mess. I mean, Mr. Yasser Arafat will come and become the Palestinian Authority. Your tasks, your two main tasks, Israel security. The second task is managing day-to-day affairs, and the detailed explanation for the Palestinians instead of what the Israelis will handle these matters. You take care. These are everyday matters, and your mission is to secure Israel. This is the first time I've posted this. Of course, the Palestinians felt at that time with joy and victory, and with the fact that their uprising has ended. This has led to a significant political outcome. No doubt about it. But after a year, 2, 3, they discovered that the authority, the Palestinian system, if it contains a repetition of the systems, there is no resistance in Arabic. Resistance is not allowed. The Palestinians understood that. They thought it would come. The authorities are leading the resistance. They discovered that the authorities against the resistance. And if the Palestinian Authority leadership does not strike, for example, in resistance and struggle, you give an example of corruption and bribery, and the establishment of casinos and the imaginary authority under the occupation includes 17 security agencies. The one who has presidential security, intelligence, and preventive security. The West Bank and Gaza's security forces are a huge mess, that's all. Of course, the group that is resisting is not happy with this. The conversation reached a major point of contention when the assassination of Yahya Ayash and the operations carried out in retaliation on that assassination. Ayash actuals in January of the year 96. Year 96D. It was a year of conspiracy against the Palestinian resistance, to the point that all the Arab rulers were brought to Sharm el-Sheikh in counterterrorism conference, and Yasser Arafat was with them. You can even read this in George's memoirs. Tenet, the director of the U.S. intelligence services, on the 11th September, and he says, "We told Arafat a clear message. If you can't resolve this, there's no future. You are responsible for what happens." Arafat returned from counterterrorism conference backed by force, Arabic language, Arab politics, and money, Arabic with American and Israeli technology, in order to eliminate the resistance in Palestine. You could say that he was indeed able to eliminate. It was on her when the year 99 arrived, until, and it began. This means a more serious attempt at negotiations regarding the final status in the Camp David negotiations. In the year 2000, when there was a minister of labor in the government, Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat were in this. The negotiations that you could say are more a serious attempt that clearly proved to be the most important thing the Palestinian can offer it. It cannot. The Israeli is pleased with him, or the most concession the Israeli can offer. The Palestinian cannot be satisfied with this, meaning during these negotiations, Arafat made a generous offer. He said, "They have even Jerusalem. We will leave Jerusalem, but the mosque, Al-Aqsa, remains under the supervision of the conference organization." The Islamists rejected Ehud Barak, negotiations collapsed. Opposition leader Ariel Sharon was present. He was pleased with all this tolerance towards the Palestinians. He stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and this led to the outbreak of the Second Intifada in 2000. So this is the First Intifada, Professor Mohammed Shor. What were the cores? Direct cores. It is the ramming operation carried out by a settler for Palestinian workers. It was in Gaza, in Jabalia. But of course, the real reason is an accumulation of oppression and killing. Yes, you have a long history. Of course, there was something like that in the middle before the uprising. The second one was Oslo, and Oslo was too. No, not after the Second Intifada, not Oslo. The one in which Yasser Arafat was brought. Yes, are the Oslo Accords, the Madrid Accords of 1991 and 1992. This is after the Second Intifada. This is the solution that the Israelis and Americans brought him in order to they control this uprising. The people who have no head are now asking questions. The collapsed negotiations were marred by a series of incursions. Sharon to Al-Aqsa Mosque. But Sharon's choice is the spark that ignited the uprising. The spark that ignited. The uprising took place on September 27th or 28th, September 2000. And here you could say it takes up another huge pages signify the Palestinian struggle and resistance. The Palestinian, and here of course I mean Sharon, got early elections, which he won, and he said, I am in just 100 days I will crush this uprising. He couldn't get rid of her, and she continued. The struggle continued and evolved until many, I want to say many things, but don't say too much. I mean, not most, but many of the sons. The Palestinian Authority is beginning to discover that the authorities didn't bring them anything, and those who they were fighting them on the basis that they were terrorists. They are sabotaging the peace process and wasting its fruits, which we can achieve without problems if the problems are collapsing and the authority itself has turned against it. Arafat himself began to turn a blind eye to his situation a little. Palestinian resistance. So, sir, those were truly tremendous moments. I stated, we can say it ignited on one side and was damaged on the other. With the incident of September 11, 2001. Or you have Sharon in Palestine, an extremist figure. George W. Bush is a prominent figure in America. The extremist Republican Party also came on September 11th. America ignited a global war against terrorism. Fashion Al-Qatar says, just like you are fighting. I am fighting Islamic terrorism in the world. Islamic terrorism in Israel led to an alliance. Huge tensions exist between the Americans and the Israelis at this moment Sharon's hand was released, committing massacres until we reached a solution on this. The shape, Sharon saw that the Gaza Strip was a very troublesome area. It's very confusing and very crowded. So instead of me being in charge, each one has its own security problems, and the workers mean you pay. There are attacks by settlers and soldiers every now and then. I will withdraw from him and surround him. Arafat, if that was useful back then, is useful now. That's no good, and he's still someone who thinks he's something and knows what he's doing. He liberates Palestine. Or he might reach it through negotiation. We assassinated Arafat and we assassinated the Palestinian leadership. We're paving the way for the next generation. So you can say, what does the second generation of customers mean? Like that, Darlan and Jibril Rajab, so that the sector, Gaza will receive Mohammed Darlan, as he has made two decisions, two major turning points in the course of the Palestinian cause, the decision to withdraw from Gaza and the decision he built the barrier wall because he still couldn't. The people of the West Bank have caves, they have roots, and they have many suicide bombers. They're coming in from this land, so we'll take pictures. So we'll create images of insulation that we can control. Regarding the security situation, we will withdraw from Gaza from the outside. So we keep them surrounded. What do they understand? Or what? It means they'll explode at each other. Good, this was said in 2005. The withdrawal from Gaza was fine in 2005. Under the American administration, Obama came. No, he didn't. At that time, Bush had arrived in the American administration. To conclude, he says, Tamam says that the group of tyrants, those present in the Arab world, are correct. They serve our interests, but these people, because of they are dictators who oppressed their people, so severe that their people are no longer just. It explodes there, and now it's causing explosions here. 11 September and Madrid trains, London trains and Madrid. Therefore, Bush embraced a theory that said, this is a conspiracy. Arab world, or, hey guys, you have 2KI here too. Pakistan is obviously talking about 2KI before Erdogan. You have Pakistan, and there are countries that act like this, like a theater, democratic, and the countries that put on a democratic show. These are all the terrorist groups in parentheses. They're exhausting themselves with elections, going back and forth. Today in the government, tomorrow in the opposition. The other side is that we control both countries through. So we will now announce what democracy is in Islamic world. What matters to us now from all this is that this democracy, when we try to implement it in Palestine, we will now establish democracy in Palestine after. Who was assassinated after Arafat? Who is the second person? Mahmoud Abbas, a man. He's a great guy, one of ours. We don't say a word to him. He tells us, your dreams, tomorrow I will make them a reality. Yesterday, a man from our group was there, and he was a man. An engineer from Oslo, meaning that's what we actually wanted. But what does it mean that Arafat was clinging to power? Let's hold elections. In Palestine, we will have Mahmoud Abbas. We will agree with him. Regarding the issues of the final solution, there is nothing. We'll tell him, and he'll say no. Okay, or let's hold elections. They held elections, surprising everyone by revealing that the movement, the Green Team, won by a landslide. Of course, it's a natural consequence for the people. Conscious, it was unexpected. What did it mean? On their level, they weren't. On their level, and even on the level of the authorities, no one in the Arab world could have imagined that the Fatah movement, with all the support that was with her, and with all the authority, what she has in her hands, and with all her history, is possible. The Islamists, who are oppressed, will prevail over them. They are tired and slaughtered, but what is 2006? Palestine still has a government affiliated with a Ministry of Health, and what does Condoleezza Rice say in her memoir? She says, we've reached a dead end. Should we acknowledge the election results? But is this a terrorist act, or should we not acknowledge it? So this is against democracy. But what did they do? They confessed. They voted, but didn't recognize the movement. Falsehood will never lack anything, meaning. But what happened here? A security breakdown began through the authorities and Fatah apparatus to try to remove the movement from power by force. First, they told her, take the power and show us what you'll do. Yes, and Egypt went ahead and imposed a blockade on the Gaza Strip. Israel then arrested most of the council members, the MP, so that the quorum of the West Bank is not met. Weston, the majority remains Fatah. Yes, there was a breakdown, and of course the Green Movement Center. In Gaza, the influx lasted a year, from 2006 to 2007, until the brigade leadership decided to carry out an operation, military resolution, and it gets rid of the forces of lawlessness that she assassinated Haniyeh twice, and almost did something. This was a terrible period, and no agreements worked, Mecca or the Cairo agreements. So here Gaza was liberated, and by year I mean it was liberated in 2005. It came under the rule of the Green Movement in 2007. This is where the Palestinian division begins, or what? The Palestinian division is called that because it is also Fatah. The Israeli occupation has taken control of the West Bank, imprisoned all the people of Gaza. It persecuted the movement, so they remained. We have an opening with the West Bank, and what else? Gaza with the Green Movement. Yes, over the years, Gaza has transformed into a fortress. From the strongholds of resistance, she fought was alone. You have the 2006 war. You have the 2008 war. 2009 you have the 2014 war, and then the 2017 return marches safe Jerusalem 2021 until the Great War that was in. Yes, Professor Muhammad. May God reward you. Of course, that's what you mentioned. Ultimately, it is the entrance through which one usually enters. He wants to cast doubt on the Palestinian cause and say, "You're divided. So we'll come together as soon as you're united. We'll sit with you." But the background of this division that you have been kind in this episode, blessed, and we're also talking about losing, in short, washing, the summary and frankness of the Palestine file, God willing, blessed be God, full, because it is impossible, but I think it's the longest episode in the series. It is longer than the Crusades. I think we're past 3 hours. It means it will be clear after editing. May God protect us. Okay, I just wanted to end the episode, Mr. Mohammed. I have 3 questions. Question 1. Will Palestine be liberated? The liberation of Palestine is a promise from God Almighty. In the American chord surrounding and extending Israel, we can separate them in another situation and in another place. Okay, but today, you could say that Israel has become somewhat exposed. Okay. Question from Professor Muhammad. We Palestinians, what was the name of the question? The episode, excuse me, is about whether the Arab world has been liberated. All of it except Palestine. Palestine, we want to liberate our land because we want to establish a Palestinian state as a new country to add to the countries that exist. Or do we want to liberate them? This land is from this body so that the world may be free. The Islamic world is not just the Arab world. We Muslims, not just Palestinians, we Muslims, we have overlapping duties in liberating Palestine. Firstly, because it is part of the land of Islam. Secondly, because it is one of the sacred sites of Islam. Not only, just like any other part, it means that Muslims have an obligation upon them. They should liberate Madagascar if it is entirely Islamic. The obligation is doubled if this occupier is the Islamic holy site, the first of the 2 Qiblars, and the third, the 2 holy mosques, and then the Muslims have a duty to unite, and that they disperse. The issue is that there are people who want to liberate Palestine because that would leave a new independent Qatari state. That's possible. Accepting someone who is a Palestinian nationalist means not feeling he does not bring with him the values and duties of Islam, but the Muslim is the one who wants to unite and liberate Palestine to be part of the Islamic nation. Yes, that's very important. The last question, actually, Professor Muhammad, now after all this vast history, all these momentous events that occurred, what was the reason Palestine should mean it? For every human being, Arab, for every Muslim, for every person in the world walking, what should Palestine mean? For every person in the world, it means he follows the conflict and understands it. Even non-Muslims know that Palestine is the center of civilizational conflict in the world, the clash of civilizations in the world, and here I bring with it the words of Dr. Gamal Hamdan, a geographer and thinker, Egyptian, not Islamic. He says the fate of the world depends on conflict between the first world and the third world, and the conflict hinges on the conflict between the nations, Arabism and Western colonialism. This conflict depends on the conflict over Palestine. Palestine is the key to the global conflict. This means this is what every person should think about. The world is preoccupied with the idea of global conflict, but the Muslim and the Arab knows that the conflict between Islam and Western civilization, its center here means if Israel were alone, perhaps the Palestinians were able to wage it. They are alone, but Israel is supported by the West, therefore, the issue is much bigger, and we have in the Crusades crusades served as a lesson in the past, as the people of Palestine will not be liberated unless they unite against it. The Levant and Egypt under Saladin, and before him, Nur al-Din. Come on, sir, pull us tight, we're ready. Yes, it is. Exactly, and that's why I'm calling on the Palestinians. I call out to the Egyptians as I call out to the people of the Levant. Is a battle, it is everyone's battle. May God reward you, Professor Muhammad. Welcome, sir. A very long episode. We apologize, but it's full, and by God, on the contrary, we apologize for it means, on the contrary, that we've kept you waiting too long. I ask God Almighty to make this episode beneficial, and may He benefit you, my brothers, wherever you are, as we are accustomed to. Yes, publish this episode and these episodes. This series is for all your friends and loved ones, so that it may spread. Good luck to everyone until we meet again in the next episode. Coming from this good and blessed series, may God protect you until we